Hey guys, tonight we're going all the way back, like way back, to when your biggest concern wasn't deadlines or texts left on read. It was not freezing to death. Yeah, you're curled up in a dark cave, it's the dead of winter during the Upper Paleolithic, and honestly, you probably won't survive this. But for now, you're warm, alive, and surrounded by the soft crackle of a fire someone fought hard to start. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your city and local time in the comments. I want to know where and when you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your breath curls in front of your face like a ghost. It's late, whatever late even means when the sky's been dark for hours, and the sun shows no interest in coming back. The cave mouth is only a few feet behind you, a rough arch framed by icicles, its edges dark with soot and claw marks. Beyond it, the wind moans through naked trees, carrying flecks of snow and the bone-deep chill of a world still wrapped in glaciers. But in here it's different. Inside this snug hollow of stone, heat clings to your skin like a second layer. A shallow pit burns faintly in the centre of your shelter, embers glowing more orange than flame now, but you're not about to waste precious fuel. The logs took half a day to find and drag back. The tinder was wet. Your hands still remember the ache of trying to get the fire going. You're proud of it. You should be. You shuffle closer, careful not to wake the others. They're curled in heaps of furs and hides, forming what your clan calls a heat circle, a survival tactic more effective than any fur coat. It's quiet now, aside from the occasional grunt or snore. A child hiccups in her sleep. Someone scratches themselves under a tangle of skins. You adjust your weight, feeling the packed dirt floor beneath you. Cool, but not freezing. And the rock. Surprisingly warm. Thermal mass, you'll one day learn. Caves hold heat. The air smells like a mix of ash, sweat, and damp stone. You're used to it. There's even something comforting about it now. The sour tang of smoke hangs low, curling around the ceiling, creeping through your hair. If you weren't careful, it would choke you, but tonight the air draft is flowing just right. Smoke trailing gently out the narrow shaft behind the hearth. Lucky, really. Last week it got trapped. An old Loku passed out mid-sentence. Took hours before he woke up again, coughing like a mammoth with a thorn in its throat. That was a close one. You press your fingers to the inner cave wall. Cold at first, then warm. Body heat, fire heat, breath. Together, they're doing something miraculous. Without this cave, this shelter from the savage cold, your clan would have perished weeks ago. Already a neighbouring group didn't make it. Word arrived from 2 scouts. Another cave, not so different from yours, where they found the remains of a group who ran out of fuel, out of food, out of time. You lit a fire that night and didn't let it die for 3 days straight. That's the rule now. If it goes out, someone else might not wake up. You lean back and stretch your legs out, feeling your calf brush against another sleeper. Their warmth is welcome, and you mutter a soft apology just in case you kicked them. You didn't. Probably. But still. It's the cold talking. Makes everyone twitchy. Everyone paranoid. The nights are long, and the dark feels heavier in the dead of winter. Time stretches like old sinew. But you've gotten good at recognizing the signs. Who needs warmth? Who needs space? Who's just pretending to sleep to avoid night watch duty? Speaking of which, it's almost your turn. You tilt your head toward the mouth of the cave, where one lone figure stands wrapped in fur, spear in hand, watching the snowy world like it might blink back. The firelight catches on the tip of their spearhead, bone sharpened to a gleaming point. You admire their stillness, the way they barely move, even as snowflakes cling to their hair. Predators have been more active lately. Something about the scent of cave smoke draws them. Maybe they think it means easy prey. Or maybe they're just hungry. You've seen a cave bear once. Just once. Bigger than any beast you'd imagined. Its breath steaming in the frozen air. Its eyes like polished stones. You don't want to see one again. But the thought of it lives here. Always just beneath your sleep, prowling the edges of your dreams. And yet, somehow you still fall asleep. You marvel at that sometimes. The idea that your ancestors, surrounded by danger, sleeping in smoky caves, pressed up against other humans like a pile of firewood, found rest. maybe even deep, restorative sleep. Not all the time, no, but enough to survive, enough to dream, enough to build stories that would become cave paintings, myths, entire lineages. You wonder if they slept better than you, weirdly enough. No phones, no emails, no existential dread about taxes, just hunger, cold, and the stars. You lower yourself onto your side, facing the wall. The stone is uneven, a little damp, but it doesn't matter. You pull your hide tighter around your shoulders and tuck your hands between your knees. You breathe slow and quiet, matching the rhythm of the sleepers around you. Your heart settles, your eyes close. You think, just before you drift off, this is what survival feels like. It's not pretty, it's not comfortable, but it's real. And somehow, it's enough. Tomorrow you'll patch the leak in the thatch, sharpen your flint knife, maybe even trade for better furs with the clan downriver. But tonight, you just sleep, wrapped in firelight, hidden inside the womb of the earth, while winter rages outside like a furious god. It's sometime after midnight when a faint draft sneaks past your furs and nudges you awake. Not enough to alarm you, just that little shift of cold that makes your body curl tighter on instinct. You don't open your eyes yet. You listen first. Always listen first. The wind's changed. It's deeper now, pushing against the cave mouth in slow waves. You hear the flap of animal hide against the entrance, a makeshift windbreak tied with sinew and weighted down with the rocks. It rustles softly, more whisper than roar. Still intact. That's good. The cave holds. When you finally blink open your eyes, the fire's burned low again. Someone must have fed it once or twice since you dozed off, but the glow is faint now, enough to give everything that deep, dusky orange. You watch it for a moment, hypnotized by the ember's pulse, then roll onto your back and stretch, bones clicking one by one like the percussion of sleep's slow undoing. The roof above you is dark and smooth, a dome of ancient rock. You trace cracks with your eyes, noting the little ridges that feel almost deliberate, like someone once dragged their fingers across the stone just to leave a mark. You're starting to understand the way these caves work, not just as shelters, but as partners in survival. Their shape isn't random. The walls curve just enough to block the wind, the ceiling just high enough to let smoke pool without choking you. You shift onto your elbow and glance toward the entrance. A new figure is on watch now, someone younger, their silhouette stiff with cold and pride. They volunteered, didn't they? First winter watch ever. You remember being that excited once, that need to prove you could stand out there in the dark like it didn't scare the marrow out of your bones. You admire the courage, but you also know how fast confidence freezes when the cold decides to turn cruel. Your cave isn't just a shelter, it's a design solution. One part architecture, one part adaptation. And honestly, it's brilliant. The way the rear of the cave traps warm air, how narrow corridors funnel the wind so it doesn't bite. There's even that sunken spot near the back where you've been sleeping. A thermal pocket, someone called it. Warmer by just a few degrees, but enough to make the difference between shivering through the night and waking up with all your fingers still working. You didn't know any of this, not at first. You just followed the elders. Now you're one of the ones who knows how to find a cave that breathes right. It's not just about how big it is or how dry it looks. It's the shape, the slope, the way the morning light hits it. You're practically a cave connoisseur at this point. You can walk into one and know if it's going to kill you. The other night, you and a few others were sitting around the fire while the snow piled outside, swapping cave stories. Someone told a tale about a cave so big it had its own echo, and if you whispered your name, the cave would whisper it back. A full day later. Total nonsense, obviously, but entertaining. Then someone else claimed they knew a cave where the floor steamed even in winter. A hot spring under the rock, maybe. Or maybe just a story to keep kids quiet. Still, you get it. Caves are magic in the way that makes survival feel possible. Not easy, never easy, but possible. You look over at the sleeping circle, noting the way everyone seems to instinctively stay near the heat. Even the grouchiest loners curl back in eventually. You remember when Kura tried to sleep alone at the edge of the cave once, just wanted space, she said. Woke up with half her braid frozen to the wall. Didn't try that again. You think about how this arrangement, this whole communal heap of snoring bodies, might seem primitive or undignified to someone from another time, but you know better. It's efficient. It works. No one's pretending to be above it, not out here. You learn quickly that your pride doesn't keep you warm. Bodies do. Your shoulder brushes against someone next to you as you shift and they grunt softly in their sleep. You mumble an apology you know they won't remember. The sound doesn't even register for most people anymore. Everyone's used to the nightly shuffle, the half-waking dance of trying to stay warm without smothering the person next to you. It's a shared language now. Pressure, presence, permission. You remember when you first joined this group, how awkward it felt to lie down so close to strangers. Now, you'd probably roll closer to a wolf if it meant not waking up with icicles on your eyelashes. Speaking of which, your eyelashes are thankfully dry tonight. That's something. You blink a few more times, feeling the cave air settle against your face like cool mist. You wonder how many caves there are in the world. Thousands, probably. Millions, if you count the little ones. Some still warm with fires, others full of bones. Some caves forget, others remember. This one, you think, remembers. The walls have that look, scarred by soot, smoothed by touch, maybe even carved once, a long time ago. You reach up and feel a faint groove beneath your palm. Intentional? Maybe. Or maybe your brain just needs stories to fall asleep. You settle again, pulling your hide up to your chin, feeling your toes warm under the shared pile of furs. Someone snores. Someone else coughs. The fire pops once, tossing sparks toward the ceiling like little stars. Outside, the storm is building again. You can hear it now, snow flung against the cave mouth in gusts, like 1,000 little claws scraping at the stone. But the cave holds. You're warm. You're surrounded. The rock wraps around you like an ancient promise. You made it through another day. Not everyone does. You think of the ones who didn't find caves, who gambled on tree shelters or ice burrows. You've seen what the cold does to them. The stillness. The way skin turns to stone. It's quiet, yes. Peaceful even. But you'd rather sleep here, with the firelight dancing on the ceiling and someone breathing softly beside you. You close your eyes again. Tomorrow you'll help repair the hide flap. Maybe tighten the bindings. Maybe add another windbreak if the storm keeps up. You'll check for cracks in the ceiling. Water drips in the back. You'll haul in more firewood if there's any left under the snow. But tonight, you're just going to let the rock do its job. You're going to trust it to hold you, like it held the ones who came before. You don't dream right away. Not this time. Instead, you lie there on the cold earth, half asleep, half aware, somewhere in that hazy stretch between comfort and vigilance. The cave breathes with you, soft exhales of warmth and soot and the faint damp scent of limestone. You feel its presence more than see it now, and it's not just a place, not just rock. The cave has moods. It creaks sometimes, low groans of shifting stone or dripping water, and it listens, or feels like it does. The others are still asleep, you can hear them, their chests rising and falling, the occasional grunt or shuffle, and the telltale coughs of winter tightening its grip. But you don't move yet. You're thinking about last week when something, not the wind, not the storm, but something came too close to the cave. It was night like this. Deep, heavy darkness outside, and the fire was down to embers, just a few coals glowing like distant eyes. You had just drifted off when the night watch burst in, shaking, pale under layers of furs, voice barely working, said they saw it, said it was real this time. You remember the way everyone jerked awake, fumbled for spears, blades, anything sharp. The hunter in you kicked in fast, but the human part, terrified, freezing, hating that it was too dark to see anything, lingered longer. The storm outside was loud, but not louder than the sound of your own blood in your ears. No one ever saw it clearly, just eyes maybe. A silhouette, larger than a bear, with fur that blended into the trees. Some say it was a saber-tooth. Others say something worse, something old. Something the cave remembers even if you don't. You've heard the legends. Every clan has one. The thing that stalks the cold. The one that doesn't hunt out of hunger, but boredom. You don't believe it. Not really. But after nights like that, when something walks just beyond the firelight and the cave walls start to feel thin, you kind of do. That's why the windbreak matters. That's why the fires matter. That's why the watch never sleeps. You rise slowly now, careful not to wake the elder sleeping nearest you. He always scolds if you step over him without warning, like it's bad luck or bad manners or both. You whisper a quiet greeting to the hearth and pad across the packed dirt, stepping over limbs and hides and cracked bones. Near the entrance, the cold comes in sharp and fast, biting your cheeks and nostrils like it's trying to scold you back to bed. The new watch figure stands to your right, wide-eyed and tense. You offer a quiet nod, then take your place beside them, pressing your back to the cave wall and hugging your furs tighter. Together you listen. At first it's just wind, always the wind. But if you wait long enough, you can pick out the layers beneath it. Branches cracking under snow, ice sliding off high ridges, the occasional thump, snow falling from trees or distant movement you don't want to name. You know how exposed you are right now. Your body may be tucked against the wall, but your face, your eyes, those are fair game. You can't help it. You scan the dark anyway. Look for shapes, motion, anything that moves against the pale blur of snow. That's when you remember the trick your mentor taught you years ago. Don't look at the dark. Look through it. Let your eyes go soft, unfocused, like you're staring through smoke. It's then, sometimes, that you'll catch the real threats. The ones that move when you stop trying to see them. You do it now. Unfocus, wait, watch, nothing. Relief slips in, but not too much. Not enough to lower your guard. You've seen what happens when people get too comfortable. The cave beside you doesn't judge. It just is. It shelters. That's its job. But it doesn't guarantee anything. It has no promises for the careless. You glance up and notice the soot lines again. Charred streaks from years, maybe decades of fires burning too high. There's a patch of black that always looks like a handprint to you. Not a painted one. An accident. Maybe someone leaned up once to brace themselves in pain or in fear, or maybe to steady themselves during a moment of passion. Yes, that still happens in winter. Humans are nothing if not persistent. You exhale slowly, fog rising in front of your lips and curling toward the ceiling. You wonder how many people before you sat right here, backs against this very stone, listening for monsters and praying for daylight. The watch partner finally whispers, "Do you think it's still out there?" You don't answer at first. You want to say no, that the storm probably scared it off, that predators don't like fire, that you'd know if something was watching. But then again, do you? Always? "I think it's always out there," you say quietly, "just not always hungry." That shuts the conversation down, and that's fine. No sense passing time with lies when the dark listens too. Eventually the storm softens. The snow stops hissing through the entrance, and the trees stop their creaking. The quiet turns thick again, like the world is holding its breath. You give it another stretch of silence before turning back toward the cave's warmth. Your shift is almost over, and your eyes are heavy. Someone else will wake soon and take your place. Probably the elder with the bad knees who still insists he can hear things better than the rest of you. Maybe he can. You slip back inside, pull the hide aside, and rejoin the others. Your spot is still warm, thank the ancestors. You nestle into it, fitting yourself between the same two bodies as before. One of them mumbles something in a dream language. The other tugs the shared hide a little tighter. It's safe again, or safe enough. You know you're never truly safe. Not here, not in winter, but the cave holds, and the fire hasn't gone out. That's all it takes. Your eyes close again, and this time dreams come. They're strange, as always, filled with running shapes and bone-coloured skies, and the sound of something breathing just behind you, but also with warmth, with stars, with the memory of a time before the cold swallowed everything. And somewhere in the middle of all that, you smile. You wake up in someone's armpit. Again. It's warm, sure, but also smells like fermented mammoth meat and regret. You roll your head a few inches to the side, trying to find breathable air between the edge of a fur pelt and the damp crook of someone's elbow. This is just what it is now. Your sleep space is less personal sanctuary and more human lasagna. Layers of bodies, skins and dried sweat stacked for maximum thermal efficiency. You don't mind it, really. It's part of the system. It's the unspoken rule of cave sleep. If you want to wake up with toes still attached, you better get cozy with your neighbours, and not just kind of close, pressed in like spoons in a pouch like firewood before it burns. Privacy doesn't exist. Personal space is a myth. You've lost count of how many times you've accidentally spooned the wrong person, only to be elbowed in the ribs or groaned at in protest. But this, in its own crusty, cave-dwelling way, is love, or at least solidarity. The snuggle economy, as your group's unofficial philosopher calls it. He's not wrong. There's a whole social system built around who sleeps where, who gets the middle, who gets the edge near the wall, and who, gods forbid, has to sleep near the cave mouth. The elders get priority, always. They've earned it. Their bones creak louder than the trees in a storm, and they don't tolerate cold like the rest of you. They go in the warmest part of the pile, back middle, away from drafts, often flanked by the quietest sleepers. It's the closest thing your clan has to a VIP section. Children and infants are next. They're placed like hot stones into the crooks of adult bodies, usually under multiple layers of furs, tucked in tighter than a bear in hibernation. Sometimes, a baby will squirm out and cry, and the whole pile will groan and shift like a single annoyed organism until the child is reburied and silence resumes. Then there are the alphas, the top hunters, fire masters, and resource holders. They drift toward the warmth almost by gravity. You could challenge it, technically, rearrange the order, but good luck. The cold doesn't wait for your pride to figure itself out. You've got middle-of-the-pack status. Not too cold, not too warm. Right next to the guy who never stops talking in his sleep, and the woman who hums herself down every night, like a song stuck in her dreams. But here's the thing. Every night, despite the smell, the cramped limbs, and the uninvited foot in your ribcage, this pile keeps everyone alive. You can't deny the genius of it. Even animals get it. You've seen wolf pups curl into their mother's belly like coins tucked into a purse. You've watched mountain goats nestle together in snowbanks. They know. Instinct knows. Sleep is dangerous. Cold is worse. Body heat is gold. You remember when someone tried to sleep alone once? Talca, the new guy. Showed up midwinter, dripping with confidence and bear grease. Said he didn't need all that clingy huddling. Said he slept better on his own, with space to breathe and stretch. Okay, fine. He spent one night curled up by the cave wall like a fallen log. In the morning you found him shivering, teeth clacking so hard he couldn't speak for a full hour. He didn't argue the next night. He crawled in like a shamed dog and hasn't slept more than a foot from the group since. Cold teaches fast. You finally sit up, stretching your spine until it cracks. Around you the pile slowly stirs. Someone groans, someone mutters. A child coughs, and a mother immediately begins rubbing their back without even opening her eyes. It's like a dance, this waking ritual. Everyone untangles, nobody hurries. You toss off your fur and wince at the first slap of cold on your skin. It's dry this morning, which is lucky. No drips from the ceiling, no damp seeping into the floor. You press your hand against the wall beside you, still holding some warmth from the night. The stone is better than any blanket if you know where to sit. The fire's just embers now. Someone needs to get it going again. You look around. Half the pile is pretending to still be asleep. Classic. Everyone suddenly becomes an Oscar-worthy actor when morning duties roll around. You nudge the sleep talker and get a sleepy grunt in return. No help there. Eventually you give in, groaning louder than necessary as you crawl toward the hearth. You gather some kindling, dry moss, shaved bark, and the last of the pine twigs, and set to work. It's not hard anymore. You've done this hundreds of times. Flint, strike, spark, breath. You blow gently until the embers catch and flames lick the new fuel. Warmth begins to spread, and like moths to a torch, the group starts inching closer. There's no thanks, no applause, just the usual. A few nods, someone handing over a chunk of dried meat as payment, and an elder saying, "Took you long enough." But even that's affection in its way. As you chew the meat, which is tough and tastes vaguely like it spent time in someone's shoe, you glance around and take it in. This is your clan, your people. Not bound by blood, not all of them, but bonded by cold and fire and the nightly ritual of shared sleep. You start to wonder how this dynamic formed. When did early humans realize that the best chance of survival wasn't strength, but closeness? When did someone first think, hey, maybe if we lie on top of each other like half-dead fish, we won't freeze to death? Probably right around the time the Ice Age decided to try and erase everyone. And the real magic? It worked. You made it through the night. Again, no one died, no one froze. The fire is back, the cave didn't collapse. That's a win. Still, it's not perfect. There's always that one person who steals the hide in their sleep. Or the one who snores so loud it echoes off the back wall like a drumbeat. Or the kid who keeps kicking, dreaming of mammoths apparently. But you forgive it all. You even expect it now. Sleep is a communal act here. Not just something you do, but something you share. It's part of the glue holding the group together. Even when you fight during the day, disagree over food or tasks come bedtime, you curl up beside each other anyway. Because survival isn't a solo mission. You rise now, stretch again, and go to check on the hide wall at the cave's entrance. It held overnight, flapping lightly in the breeze, snow dusted across the lower edge like a powdered warning. Beyond it, the sky glows faintly. Morning is coming. Time to begin again. But you'll miss the warmth of the pile tonight. You always do. There's something about that closeness, that heat, that chaos of limbs and breath that feels more sacred than any prayer. And as brutal as winter can be, it's the cold that reminds you. You're not meant to do this alone. You don't remember falling asleep again. But when your eyes flutter open the second time, the light has changed. Pale, morning sun creeps in through the edges of the hide at the cave mouth, spilling a dull glow across the stone floor. It's that dim, bluish-grey kind of light, what passes for daytime in the depths of winter. Enough to let you see where you're stepping, not enough to make anything feel truly awake. You stretch where you are, the stiffness already creeping into your joints. Sleeping on dirt, rock, and the occasional elbow will do that to you. Still, you feel better than expected. Not rested exactly, but intact. Like your body did what it was supposed to do in the night. Shut down, recovered just enough to keep going, and you're not alone. Around you others are stirring again, slowly, quietly, like a flock of sleepy animals yawning in sync. No one's in a rush. Why would they be? Outside, the world is still frozen solid. The cold doesn't care about your to-do list. It just waits and waits and waits. You get up to help with the morning work anyway. Stir the fire, patch the hide flap, check the snowdrift depth outside. It's routine now. You've adapted. All of you have. But while you're out there tying off a new stone weight to the bottom of the hide curtain, your mind wanders to the weirdest part of winter cave life. The way you sleep. Not just when or where, but how. Because it's not like how you slept before the frost came. Before the clan migrated into this cave for the season, your sleep was simpler, shorter, one long stretch mostly. Fall asleep when the sun goes down, wake when it comes back. You'd maybe wake once in the night to pee, grumble about how cold your feet were, and go back to sleep. But here, during the deep freeze, something's shifted. Now your sleep comes in parts. You lie down after sunset, full of meat and fire warmth, and drift off. That first sleep is heavy, deep, and dreamless. Your body sinks into it like it's falling through snowdrifts, slow and muffled. Then, hours later, you wake up again, completely alert as if morning's arrived. But it hasn't. Not even close. At first it was unsettling. You'd toss, turn, try to recapture the rhythm of unconsciousness. But you weren't alone. All around you, others were doing the same, stretching, whispering, some getting up to tend the fire or relieve themselves in the icy dark just beyond the entrance. One night, the old woman with the cloudy eye sat up and said, "Ah, second sleep," like it was obvious. That's when you learned this wasn't new. It wasn't just winter's weirdness or the result of cramped sleeping conditions. It was normal. At least it used to be. Segmented sleep, they call it. Well, not they, not yet. That word doesn't exist in your world. But the behaviour does. It's this unspoken rhythm everyone's settled into. First sleep, then wakefulness in the middle, then second sleep before sunrise. During that in-between time, people do all kinds of things. Talk softly, sharpen tools, tend the fire, sit with their thoughts. Some pray, some lie still, and let the silence wrap around them like another blanket. There's something magical about that window. Not day, not night, something else. A pocket of time that belongs to no one. You've come to love it. In fact, last night during your second sleep window, you laid on your back, staring at the ceiling of the cave and watching shadows flicker on ancient stone. The firelight danced over cracks and smudges, turning them into animals and faces that shifted as you blinked. You thought about your parents, long gone now, and whether they slept like this too. You imagined their cave somewhere far south, maybe even warmer. Maybe they only had one sleep, but you're starting to think two is better. You know others are beginning to notice it too, the comfort in those quiet hours. People talk more during them. Whispers drift through the dark, hushed laughter and half-told stories. The walls of the cave feel thinner then, in a good way. Like you're closer to the ones who sleep beside you, and the ones who came before. Something ancient wakes with you, moving between the firs, sipping the silence. Last week, one of the elders said he remembers a time when people would dream during first sleep, and interpret those dreams during the second sleep wakefulness. He said that's when the mind is softest, when messages come through. You're not sure what you believe, but you've had strange dreams yourself lately. Some vivid, some just flashes. A face, a flame, a voice you didn't recognize whispering your name. When you told the elder, he nodded like that confirmed something for him, something he hadn't said out loud yet. You step back inside the cave now, the cold still clinging to your furs like a warning. You shake it off and rejoin the group. Most are upright now, stretching, fussing with braids, blowing on numb fingers. The fire is roaring again, thanks to the early risers, or the second sleep risers, depending on how you look at it. You settle near the edge of the hearth and warm your hands, the heat sinking into your bones. You hear someone behind you say they didn't dream at all. Someone else counters they had a dream so strange it woke them up laughing. A third says they think the spirits of the dead only speak during second sleep, and if you're too deep under furs to hear them, that's on you. No one disagrees, and in that moment you realise something. You're not just surviving winter, you're adapting to it, evolving even. Your body's finding rhythms that match the season. Your sleep isn't broken, it's working as designed. This cold, hard, brutal world has stripped away everything unnecessary, and what's left is something ancient and real. People in the far future might look back and think you were primitive, that your cave life was desperate and miserable, but you think they're missing the point. There's something incredibly human about all of this. The communal sleep, the shared fire, the quiet hours when no one's pretending to be strong, when you just are. You lie back down, just for a moment, furs pulled tight around your shoulders, the fire popping softly nearby. Your eyes begin to close again, not from exhaustion, but from ease. You'll rise again soon. Tasks need doing. The storm's fading and the group will have to decide whether to hunt today or wait for better skies. But first, just a little more rest. Second sleep still has something to say. The morning doesn't come all at once. It seeps in like melted ice, slow and tentative, never quite committing to full brightness. Pale light filters through the hide flap, brushing against the stone floor like a reluctant guest. Most of the group is already awake now, moving around the cave with that half-zombie shuffle of people who've accepted the day but don't fully agree with it. Someone drops a stone bowl. It clatters, echoing off the walls with exaggerated drama, and is followed by a mumbled apology and a louder curse from someone trying to sleep in. You sit up and rub your face, fingers cold against your cheeks, and then stretch until your shoulders crack like firewood. Your muscles ache, but not in a bad way, just the familiar stiffness of living like this, of sleeping on stone, of surviving winter. You reach for your drinking pouch, thawed just enough to sip from, and take a mouthful of water that tastes faintly like smoke and leather. The fire's still going strong. Someone, probably the night watch again, kept it fed, and now it pops cheerfully in its pit, like it knows what kind of miracle it is. You glance at the ceiling above it. The smoke is behaving today, coiling in lazy spirals that trail toward the narrow smoke shaft near the back of the cave. It doesn't always work like this. Some days the cave seems to suck the smoke back down and spit it across the sleeping area like a spiteful spirit. But today it's perfect. A warm fire and breathable air. Luxury. You scoot closer and hold your hands over the flames. They sting a little from the sudden contrast. Cold fingers meeting hot air, but the pain fades fast, replaced by that beautiful creeping sensation of warmth sinking into bone. And above you the ceiling tells its story, not in words of course, but in smudges, in soot, in layers. The whole upper stretch of this cave is blackened with the memory of fire. Decades, maybe centuries, of flame rising up and painting the stone. It's like a shadow history of everyone who came before you. Every spark, every campfire, every terrified winter night. All of it left behind in black. You look at one particular spot, directly above the hearth. A dark streaked dome, like the underside of a giant ancient pot. The smoke has soaked so deeply into the stone that it looks permanent, like the rock itself gave up and turned to ash. There's no art there, no animals or handprints, just smoke. But you can't stop staring at it. Because even though it's not a painting, it still says something. Something about survival, about repetition, about how many fires had to be lit just to make sure one group, one child, one elder didn't freeze to death. You remember once when you were younger asking an elder if the smoke ever disappeared, if the stone could be cleaned. He'd laughed, a deep cracked sound that echoed weirdly off the walls and said, "Only if we forget how to make fire." You didn't understand it then, but now it lands different. because the soot isn't a stain, it's a record. You lean back, letting the fire warm your knees, and let your eyes drift across the rest of the ceiling. That's when you notice something else. Not just soot, but lines. Faint, barely there scratches cut into the stone. You stand, step carefully around the hearth, and crane your neck. Yes, lines. Curved, deliberate, repeating patterns. Not random, not natural. You call another over, a younger girl with sharp eyes and a mind like flint. She spots it immediately. Markings, she says. Old ones. What do they mean? She shrugs. Maybe it's counting. Maybe seasons. You both stare upward, squinting into the shadows and rising smoke, and for a second you feel a weird tug, like you're peering into someone else's notebook, a message left across time by a hand long gone. They didn't sign it, didn't carve their name, but they marked it. Maybe during one of those second sleep windows, maybe when they couldn't sleep at all. Back in your bed pile, someone sneezes, then again, and then a third time. The rhythm of illness, unmistakable and deeply inconvenient. You glance back and catch the look of dread passing between two of the elders. It's just a cold, maybe. Or maybe something worse. The cave may be warm, but it's also close. Breath and sweat and air shared by everyone all the time. That's the cost of the snuggle economy. It keeps you alive, but once one person's lungs betray them, everyone's in line. Still, the fire helps, the warmth matters, and the smoke. The smoke might be saving you in its own roundabout way. There's a growing belief among some in your group, especially the ones who overthink everything, that smoke drives sickness away, that the soot on the ceiling isn't just a record of fires past, but a kind of guardian, a purifier. You're not sure, but you also don't not believe it. You've seen what happens when fire dies out. It's not just cold, it's hopelessness. It seeps into people's eyes. They move slower, argue more. Sleep doesn't come as easily, and that's when you remember the worst part of winter isn't the cold, it's the creeping dread that maybe you won't make it out this time. The fire keeps that thought away. So does the smoke. Even when it stings your eyes and makes you cough, it feels like a necessary trade. You'll take sore lungs over frozen limbs. Every time. Someone hands you a chunk of dried meat, chewy and slightly burnt but edible, and you accept it with a grunt of thanks. You chew as you watch the shadows ripple on the ceiling. The shapes flicker and morph with the flames. Sometimes they look like animals, sometimes like people, sometimes like nothing at all. And it occurs to you, maybe for the first time, that this is probably where stories were born. Not around the hunt or the kill, but here, right here, under soot-blackened ceilings and firelight shadows. With your belly full, your body warm, and your mind half in a dream, someone starts humming, a low, tuneless thing, maybe a song, maybe just a way to keep calm, but it spreads. Another joins, then another. No words, just tones, curling up toward the smoke-dark ceiling and getting lost somewhere in the ancient rafters. You hum along, not because you know the tune, but because it feels right. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the fire heat your eyelids, letting the soot and smoke and shadows tuck themselves around you like another blanket. This is cave life, cramped, smoky, imperfect, but warm and alive. You don't notice it at first, not until your eyes adjust and your breath slows, but they're watching you, not in a creepy way, not even in a way that seems intentional, just there, quiet and still, hidden in plain sight, the cave paintings. You've passed them dozens of times, brushed your fingers across them, used them as a landmark to pick your sleeping spot, nodded toward them like old friends. But only now, in the hush between chores, between hunting talk and fire maintenance, do you actually see them. They're scattered along the mid-wall stretch, just where the light from the fire catches them when it flares up. Not too high, not too low, exactly where your eyes tend to drift when you're trying not to think too hard. You tilt your head and squint. There's a bison there, big, bulky and roughly drawn with charcoal and reddish ochre. Its legs are too thick, its head a little lopsided, but it's alive in the way that matters. Next to it, a smaller creature, maybe a deer, maybe a dog, its body almost a suggestion, fading where the pigment ran dry. Higher up there's a handprint, just one. Fingers spread wide, the palm imperfect, the thumb smeared where someone pressed too hard or too fast. It feels like it's staring at you. You walk over, drawn like always, and run your hand near, not on, the edge of the print. The stone is cool beneath your fingers. You wonder about the person who made it, what they were thinking, whether they meant to leave a message or just needed to do something with their hands one sleepless night. Nobody really talks about the cave art anymore. It's just there. Always has been. Some say it's old, from clans that lived here before yours ever stumbled into this shelter. Others insist it's been added to over time, that everyone leaves their mark eventually, whether they admit it or not. There's a debate, quiet and mostly unspoken, about what the art is for. One elder believes it's a record, like the soot on the ceiling, that every painting is a kind of memory, a diary scrawled across stone instead of skin. Another thinks they're warnings, coded messages meant to say, "Don't go past this point," or "Here be bears." A few believe they're prayers, offerings to whatever spirits haunt the rocks, and decide who wakes up frozen and who doesn't. But there's a third theory, and this one sticks with you. The story keeper, the closest thing your group has to a historian, once said, "We paint the animals so they'll dream of us." That line never left your head. The idea that art isn't about telling you something, it's about whispering to the world itself, asking it to remember you, to treat you kindly. You stare at the bison again, at its heavy haunches and wide, weary eyes, and feel something stir, like it does remember, like it saw you coming long before you ever set foot in this cave. The fire flares suddenly behind you, someone added a log, and the shadows leap across the walls like startled deer. For a moment the bison moves. The handprint seems to reach. You blink, and it's still again. But your heart skips anyway. You're not the only one who stares. Later that day, when you're eating a handful of dried berries and chewing on a strip of reindeer tendon, you notice one of the children crouch near the wall, tracing the shapes with a piece of charcoal. Not adding, just mimicking, practicing. They're young, still half feral from spending so much time outside in the snow, but there's something focused in their movements, a rhythm. You watch from a distance as they slowly, carefully redraw the deer figure, eyes narrowed in concentration. When you ask them what they're doing, they shrug and say, "Making it better." And you can't argue. Maybe it is. You remember the first time you tried to draw something. You were 9 winters old and it was a handprint just like the one on the wall. You found the charcoal near the fire, dipped your palm in melted fat to help it stick, and pressed it to the wall just inside the cave's mouth. It was gone by spring. Rain got in, or maybe someone scrubbed it off. But for a little while, it was there. A stamp that said, "I was here." You wonder how many others have come and gone, how many ghosts the walls hold. Not the haunting kind, the quiet kind. The kind that show up in flickering firelight and remind you that people have always done this. Sat here, felt the cold, worried about food, painted animals, and dreamed. That's the other part of the theory. The one that slips into your head when you're half asleep, blinking up at the blackened ceiling. That the paintings aren't just memories or prayers, they're part of the dreaming. That when you sleep, those shapes crawl off the walls and into your mind. Not to scare you, just to visit. Last night you dreamed of antlers. You were standing in a white field, your feet bare in the snow, and a herd of elk moved past you without a sound. Their breath hung in the air like steam. None of them looked at you, but you knew they saw you. One brushed past, its flank warm despite the cold, and you could feel the coarse hair against your skin. You didn't think much of it when you woke. Dreams come and go. But then you saw the bison again this morning and felt that strange pull, that hum in your chest, like something connecting that shouldn't. Maybe that's why the art is where it is. Not deep in the cave where no light can reach, but here, just near the sleeping space, so you can see it when you wake, so it can see you while you dream. You sit back against the opposite wall and close your eyes for a moment. Let the fire's warmth press into your legs. The soft sounds of the cave rise around you, the crackle of flame, the snuffle of someone napping, the distant murmur of wind outside, and behind it all the low humming silence of the cave itself. Not empty silence, watching silence. You open your eyes again and glance at the wall. The bison is still there, so is the handprint. And now the child's drawing too, a new mark in the chain. One day someone will sit here, in the same spot, and see these. They won't know your name, they might not care, but they'll see the shape you left behind. Maybe it'll show up in their dreams. Maybe it'll make them smile. Either way they'll know. Someone lived here. Someone slept here. Someone dreamed with the fire still burning. You're not supposed to play favourites, but let's be real. Nothing beats the mammoth fur blanket. It's the apex of prehistoric luxury. It doesn't belong to anyone specifically. It's passed around like sacred treasure, divvied out by seniority, injuries, or general usefulness. But tonight, it's yours. You sit cross-legged at the back of the cave waiting for the distribution ritual to finish. It's not a ceremony exactly, but it has its structure. A few older women squat by the gear pile, sniffing and shaking furs, deciding what's dry, what's lost to mildew, and what smells like someone used it as a personal toilet. After a short, whispered debate, they hold up the Holy Grail, 2 full mammoth hide panels, thick and matted, still carrying the earthy scent of the beast that once wore it. Someone mutters, "Lucky," under their breath as you're handed one. You just grin and try to play it cool, but inside, oh, you're giddy. The thing is heavy, like really heavy. It drapes over your shoulders and pulls you toward the floor, but in a good way, like a hug from someone made of carpet and muscle. It's stitched along the edges with tendon thread, still coarse in places, with faded red dye markings you think were once symbolic. Now they just look like bloodstains, or paint. You don't ask. You drag the blanket back to your sleeping spot with a reverence normally reserved for meat distribution. It's not warm yet, just a cold, dense slab of fur. But you know it's going to be perfect once you and your body heat get it cooking. You lie down and spread it over yourself like you're settling in for a 1,000-year nap. It instantly crushes the cold. There's no other way to say it. It's like crawling back into the womb, if the womb had been made by a mammoth with an eye for comfort and absolutely no concept of personal space. Someone scoots closer, sensing your good fortune. You lift an edge of the hide and they slide in with practiced ease, murmuring a soft "thank you" that tickles your ear. You're not even mad. The mammoth hide is more than big enough for 2, maybe 3 if you all make nice. This is how status works here. Not through crowns or coins, but by who gets the warmest fur when the cave turns into a meat locker. It's subtle, but it matters. You don't boast about it. That would be weird. But you notice when someone gets the prime fur 3 nights in a row, or when someone suddenly gets moved to the cold side near the drafty crack in the wall. Sleeping placement says more than words ever could. You didn't always have this kind of pull. A few winters ago, you were still on the rawhide mats at the edge of the group. Cold, damp, second-hand scraps that smelled like smoked fish and lost dreams. You remember those nights clearly. Every time the wind picked up, your covers would flap like dying birds, and you'd wake up with snowflakes on your nose. But you earned your way in. You hunted. You hauled wood. You tended fire when everyone else was pretending to be asleep. Now, when the cold creeps in, you're one of the chosen few who gets to sleep with the mammoth. Not bad for someone who used to beg for a dry corner. You roll to your side and press your face into the hide. It smells like earth, ash, and something deeper, like history. You wonder if the mammoth dreamed too, if it had a cave of its own, if it lay down one night under a sky full of snow and imagined what it would become. You hope at least that it didn't suffer. But even if it did, its legacy is this, keeping you alive, one night at a time. There's a certain reverence your group gives to animals like this. Mammoths, especially. They're not just meat. They're gods with tusks. Their bones form shelters. Their hides become clothing. Their sinew threads your tools. When you kill one, you thank it. When you sleep beneath its fur, you feel like you're borrowing its strength, just for a little while. Someone across the fire clears their throat and starts telling a story. It's one of the old ones, the kind passed around like the hides. You've heard it before, but the rhythm is comforting. A young hunter, barely more than a boy, finds himself alone during a snowstorm and stumbles into a cave. Inside, a spirit in mammoth form guards the fire, testing those who seek warmth. The boy proves himself not by killing, but by sharing what little meat he has. The spirit rewards him with a dream so vivid it teaches him how to find shelter even in the darkest woods. The story ends with the boy waking up, alone but alive, covered in mammoth fur that hadn't been there the night before. A gift, a sign. It's obviously a myth, but you look down at your hide and smile anyway. Some part of you wants to believe. Maybe the mammoth chose you tonight, and then comes the quirky part of the night. Every cave has its traditions, and yours includes what the elders call the cold jokes. They start as the fire dies down. One person whispers a ridiculous complaint about the weather. My nose just froze off and rolled across the cave. Or, I saw a rabbit outside wearing a jacket and laughing at us, and someone else tries to top it. It's silly. It's dumb. It's pure survival humour. But it works. You laugh. Not loudly, just enough to share warmth through sound. After a few rounds, someone groans that their feet are turning into ice clubs, and the mammoth hide neighbour beside you presses their feet to yours in solidarity. A tiny furnace moment. Your toes do a little celebratory wiggle. The cave hums with low voices and shared breath. Someone sneezes, and a quiet round of blessings passes through the group, like ripples in a pond. You feel sleepy, full of meat and stories and fur. But before you drift off, your mind circles back to the hide. You know it won't be yours forever, maybe not even tomorrow night. Someone older, someone sicker might need it more. That's how it works. But for now, for tonight, this is your reward, your roof, your bed, your firekeeper. You curl tighter beneath the weight, breathing in through your nose, letting the deep musk of fur and ash settle in your lungs. Somewhere nearby, someone starts to snore, a soft rumble, like distant thunder rolling over the hills. You don't mind, it's part of the soundtrack now. And the mammoth? It doesn't judge. It just holds you, heavy, ancient, and kind. You fall asleep thinking you might never be this warm again. There's a moment just before sleep really takes you, when the cave feels like it's breathing. Not metaphorically, like actually inhaling and exhaling. The wind outside rises in a long hollow moan, threading its way into cracks and crevices, and you swear you can feel the rock shift like a beast stretching in its stone skin. You blink once, heavy-lidded, and the fire flickers. Blink again, and the world dissolves into a soft kind of nothingness. And then comes the wind. It starts as a low, distant hum, almost gentle, almost kind. But it builds, howling through the trees outside, scraping over snow-laden ledges, and slamming into the cave mouth like a battering ram. The hide flap rattles violently, thudding against its stone frame. Sparks jump from the fire like they're trying to run. Around you, bodies twitch and grumble. Someone pulls their fur tighter. Someone else mutters a prayer without realizing it. You're still half asleep, your brain swimming somewhere between mammoth dreams and firelight, when it hits again. Stronger this time. A blast of air so cold it feels like it knifes right through the hides and into your ribs. It has a sound, this wind. Not just a whistle or a roar. It screams. Long, mournful, full of jagged notes and whispers. Like the voices of something ancient trapped inside it. No one talks about it during the day, not really. But at night, when it rises like this, you can tell they hear it too. Even the bravest of the group gets quiet. The cave itself seems to sink deeper, trying to shield you all. And you, wrapped beneath the mammoth hide, press your face into the warmth and try not to wonder if the wind is mad tonight, or just lonely. You don't know what it wants. You just know that it comes harder in the heart of winter. Some say it's just weather, plain and simple. But others, especially the old ones, the ones who've survived more winters than most, say the wind carries more than cold. They say it's full of ghosts. You've heard the stories. A girl once wandered too far from the cave on a wind night like this. She was only supposed to relieve herself near the tree line just past the stream. They found her body 2 days later, not eaten, not even frozen stiff. Just missing her face, like the wind had peeled it off clean. Another tale, older still, says the wind is actually alive. Some giant invisible spirit that moves through the valleys looking for open mouths to crawl into. You wake up with it inside you, shivering and wrong, like you've swallowed something that doesn't belong to this world. Ridiculous, probably. But tonight, you understand why people believe it. You lie perfectly still, letting the hide cocoon you like bark around a tree. You can hear your own breath, short and shallow, and you try to slow it down. If the wind listens, you don't want it to know you're awake. Around the cave, others stir. The communal sleep has shattered into scattered dozing, each person clinging to their own warmth. The fire's glow doesn't reach all corners now. Shadows have crept in from the walls, thick and curling like smoke that forgot how to rise. Then it happens. A sharp crack just outside the entrance, not wood, not a tree limb, rock. A noise that makes everyone freeze. Every single body in the cave suddenly stiff. You strain to hear more. The flap shifts once, then goes still. No footsteps, no growling, no voice. Just the wind settling again, now softer, like it spent itself in a single tantrum. Someone near the fire whispers, "It's the gods." Another voice, older, replies, "It's just ice." But the tone isn't confident. The silence that follows is louder than any argument. You curl deeper beneath the hide, pressing your legs tight against your neighbours. Their bodies warm but shaking just a little. You don't speak. Neither do they. This is the rule on nights like these. Conserve heat, conserve words, conserve hope. You all know the stories. Even if they're not true, they're true enough. It takes time for sleep to return. Maybe an hour, maybe more. But eventually the wind weakens, pulling away like a predator losing interest. The flap sways gently now, like it's rocking itself to sleep. One by one, you hear the slow rhythm of breathing return. Someone's snore picks up where it left off. The fire shifts, drops, sighs. You don't dream much during that last stretch of sleep. Just flashes, drifts of snow, glowing embers, the sound of something large exhaling in the distance. When you open your eyes again, it's barely dawn. The light outside is grey and cautious, like it's testing the air before fully arriving. You sit up slowly, blanket still draped over your shoulders, and glance around. Everyone looks older this morning, weathered, tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. There's frost on the inside of the hide flap, a thin film of ice along the rocks near the entrance. The fire's nearly out again. One of the children is coughing, a wet chest-deep sound. You file that away as a problem to watch. But what catches your eye most is the small pile of snow inside the cave, just near the edge. Not big, a couple handfuls, windblown maybe, but it's far, too far, from the entrance. You walk over, crouch down and run a finger through it. Cold, yes, but strange. There's no trail leading to it, no drips from above, just that small pile sitting like an offering. You look around, but no one else seems to notice, or they're pretending not to. You return to your place, press your back to the wall, and wrap yourself tighter in the mammoth hide. Someone needs to rebuild the fire. The coughing child needs warm broth. The wind will rise again tonight, and you'll have to prepare. But you keep thinking about that crack, that snow, that long, horrible scream the wind made like it was calling someone's name. Maybe it was just ice. Maybe it was just cold. But then again, maybe the cave is the only thing holding the darkness back. By now, you've gotten used to the sounds of people sleeping, but let's not pretend it's peaceful. If anything, it's a full-blown symphony of prehistoric dysfunction. You lie on your side, face buried halfway in a fur pelt, trying to drift off again after a rough night of wind-induced paranoia. And what do you get? Not the sweet lullaby of a crackling fire. Number. You get snoring. Big, wet, determined snoring. Someone to your left sounds like they're trying to swallow a log through their nose. To your right, a kid keeps kicking in their sleep, muttering the word berries with increasing urgency, like they're trying to win an argument in their dream. And someone near the fire has started talking in full sentences, not whispers, sentences. At first, you think they're awake. But no, they're horizontal, eyes closed, gesturing wildly with one hand as they argue with whatever spirit or memory has climbed into their head tonight. You don't even get mad anymore. You just listen. It's part of the nightly landscape. At least two of your cave mates grind their teeth, one like a subtle crunch, the other like they're chewing rocks. Someone else breathes in short, panicked bursts, which is fine, until you realise they always stop for a few seconds between breaths, long enough to make you wonder if they're dead. Then they snort back to life, wheezing like a boar, and you start the whole emotional cycle again. The cave itself is an echo chamber. Every sniffle bounces around like a drumbeat. Every cough, especially now with illness slowly creeping in, sounds like it comes from 6 people at once. The walls do nothing to soften it. If anything, they amplify it. You once had to leave your bed and wedge yourself in the woodpile just to escape a duet of simultaneous burping and foot itching. And farts. Don't get started on the farts. You'd think people might try to be discreet, but no. The logic seems to be, if you're under 3 layers of fur and surrounded by other humans, you're in your own private bubble. Wrong. It travels. It lingers. One person's dinner of rancid root stew becomes everyone's nightmare by midnight. But here's the weird thing. You've come to rely on it all. The noise, the mess, the communal chaos of cave sleep. It's strangely comforting. Every cough means someone's still breathing. Every snore means you're not alone. You once spent a night in a small rock alcove, separated from the group for firewood duty, and the silence nearly broke you. You lay there in pitch black, so quiet your own heartbeat felt too loud. No snoring, no talking, no nose whistles or dream grunts, just emptiness. You couldn't sleep. You just counted seconds until the sun came up. Now, You'd take a dozen sleep talkers over that any night. Of course, there's a bit of strategy involved in cave sleeping. You can't just flop down anywhere. You've learned to position yourself between low-maintenance sleepers. 1 loud breather, fine. 2, disaster. You've mapped out who has night terrors, who rolls over aggressively, who kicks, who hoards fur like it's currency. You've memorised the prime spots for airflow versus heat retention. You even know which spot gets just the right amount of light from the fire without being too bright. There's the rock pillow trick too, finding a stone just the right size to support your head without making you feel like your neck is being punished for a past life crime. You have a favourite rock now. It's smooth, slightly concave and blessedly cool. Someone else tried to claim it once and you nearly committed murder in the most passive-aggressive way imaginable, by saying nothing and just staring at them until they put it back. But the noise, that's the real obstacle. Some nights, when you're too tired to fight it, you lean into it. You start counting snores like sheep. You give people nicknames based on their sleep sounds. Boar snore, rattle skull, the whisper prophet. You tell yourself little stories about what they're dreaming. Maybe the guy who breathes like he's being chased is actually hunting something in his sleep. Maybe the woman with the delicate hum is floating somewhere above the snow line, watching the stars. You start to think of the cave itself as an orchestra. The fire is the percussion, popping and snapping in irregular rhythm. The sleepers are the wind section, some soft and airy, others loud and nasal. The occasional rock shift or creak from above provides the bass, reminding you that even stone has a voice. One night, not long ago, a visiting hunter from a neighbouring group came to stay for a few days. He was stoic, all quiet stares and sharp bone jewellery, the kind of man who probably wrestled wolves for fun. First night in the cave, he didn't sleep. Second night, he curled up by himself in the corner, as far from the snoring cluster as he could get. By the third night, he had quietly dragged his bedroll closer to the group, then closer still. By the fourth night, he was sandwiched between 2 snorers and sleeping like a baby. Didn't even flinch when someone sneezed directly onto his foot. You get used to it. More than that, you come to need it. Still, there are debates about how to improve things. One person suggested separate sleeping sections. Another suggested rotating sleeping partners to balance the noise profile, whatever that means. Someone else, half joking you think, tried to invent a kind of snore mask using fur, clay and a fish bladder. It did not go well. The thing exploded mid-sleep, spraying fish stink all over the fire. Legendary failure. Everyone remembers it. No one talks about it. There's a quiet acceptance now. You snore. I fart. She mutters about dead relatives. He kicks his feet like he's running from something every night. We all get through it. Tonight, as you settle back under the mammoth hide, you already know the soundtrack by heart. The kid who mumbles will do so for an hour, then go silent. The old woman will sigh in her sleep like she's disappointed in her dreams. The guy with the wheeze will hit his peak volume right before the fire dies down, then sputter into silence. Predictable, familiar, and that snore, the big one that sounds like a dying mammoth playing a flute badly, that's Gurok. He doesn't stop. You kind of hope he never does. Because one day, you'll sleep in silence again. The snorers will be gone. The cave will be empty. The walls will still echo with all this sound, this nightly music of survival, but there'll be no one left to make it. So tonight, you let it happen. You tuck your head under the fur, the snores start to blend, the whispers turn soft, someone's foot finds yours. The fire sighs, and you drift off, grateful for every ridiculous, messy human sound. You wake up with a dream still tangled around your brain, sticky and strange like cobwebs clinging after a storm. The fire's low, just embers glowing faintly in the pit, but the glow is enough to give the cave its reddish, womb-like hue. You blink slowly, trying to pull yourself out of the haze, but the images cling harder this time, more vivid than usual. A tree made of bones, a sky full of hands, a river flowing uphill, its surface writhing with fish that had human eyes. You sit up, fur sliding off your shoulders, breath fogging in front of your face. For a few seconds, you just stare at the embers, your heartbeat still out of sync with the room. You know it was a dream, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels like a message, like something handed you a folded piece of reality and said, "Here, try to make sense of this." Beside you, your neighbour stirs, mumbles something about a broken tooth god, then rolls over and resumes snoring. Classic. You envy their dreamless, unconscious drift, but at the same time, part of you doesn't want to let this one go. You felt something, deep down, in the marrow. You glance across the cave. Several others are awake too, blinking at the ceiling, lying still with that look of internal debate. Do they try to fall back asleep, or do they sit up and deal with the weirdness of what just played out in their heads? It's always a mix. Some push the dreams away, others keep them close, and then there are the dream talkers. A small group has already gathered near the hearth, each wrapped in their own layer of fur, murmuring like conspirators. You recognize them, people known to dream deeply, often, and in colour. They're not officially shamans, but they orbit around that world, slipping between waking and sleeping like seals between ice holes. You drag your fur with you, settle near the edge of the circle, and just listen. One man, face painted with soot from yesterday's fire cleaning, says he dreamed of a lion with the voice of a child. Another swears she saw her dead brother standing beside a cave made entirely of smoke. A third, younger, still trembling, mutters, "The sky cracked and spilled water." But it wasn't rain, it was eyes. You don't speak right away. You're not sure your dream belongs here. It wasn't frightening exactly, but it was vast. The kind that makes you feel like your skull isn't big enough to hold it. But as the others talk, you start to relax. The things they describe are just as strange, just as senseless. But no one laughs, no one mocks. Because here, dreams matter. They're more than brain static. They're signs, directions, prophecies maybe, if you squint hard enough. Some believe the gods speak through dreams. Others think the cave itself dreams with you, leaking its old memories into your sleep. And a few believe that dreams are simply what happens when your spirit leaves for a walk and brings back souvenirs. Whatever the truth is, people treat dreams seriously here, especially in winter, especially during the long freeze when death hovers close and waking life feels like one long exhale. You finally speak, recounting your dream, the bone tree, the fish eyes, the hand sky. As you talk, one of the elders leans closer, squinting at you through lashes heavy with sleep crust. He listens like he's trying to hear a familiar song through static. When you finish, he just nods once and says, "It's almost time." Time for what? You want to ask. But he's already lying back down, pulling his fur up over his chin like that sentence didn't just drop into the middle of your life like a mammoth skull. You sit there for a while, letting the embers warm your feet, watching the others share their dreams, trading meanings like carved beads. Someone suggests that the lion child dream means a new birth is coming. Someone else counters that it means the next hunt will fail unless led by a young tracker. No one agrees entirely, but that's the beauty of it. Dreams aren't puzzles to be solved, they're flint to be struck. Spark something, see where it goes. Later in the morning, the shaman returns from the far end of the cave where he sleeps alone. He always looks like he just stepped out of another world. Skin painted with ash, fingers stained with ochre, eyes shadowed like he hasn't blinked in hours. He doesn't speak right away, just stands by the fire staring at what's left of the coals. Finally, he raises one hand, palm out, and says, "The wind brought something last night." Everyone goes quiet. He doesn't need to raise his voice. Silence is a kind of currency in here, and he spends it wisely. "It's not just weather," he says, voice low and firm. "It was asking something. Testing the cave. Testing us." He says he dreamed of the same bone tree you did, that its roots reached deep into the cave floor, feeding on the warmth of sleeping people, that it grew from the bodies of the forgotten, that the hands in the sky were reaching down, not up, reaching for something specific. Now you're fully awake. It's not that you think he somehow read your dream. More like, you both tapped into the same stream, same source. You lock eyes for just a moment and feel the static hum again, that dream residue buzzing behind your temples. Afterward, when the cave fills again with chatter and the tasks of the day begin, you carry the dream with you like a pebble in your pocket. Small, hard, inescapable. Every step you take, you feel it knocking around. You try to ignore it, to brush it off, but it's there. And others are doing the same. You catch people glancing at the ceiling as they pass beneath it. A few are sketching in the ash near the hearth. Trees, eyes, spirals. One woman smears a black handprint on the wall, echoing the old ones. Something has shifted. You don't know what's coming. You don't even know if it's real. But your bones remember the dream, and so does the cave. And tonight, when the fire dims again and sleep creeps back in, You know the dreams will be waiting. Louder this time, closer, hungrier. So you press your fur tighter around your shoulders, lower your head onto your favourite rock, and whisper to yourself before the dark takes you again. Let me dream deep. Let me remember. The torchlight flickers like it's trying to breathe, casting long, twitchy shadows against the cave walls. You're sitting near the rear alcove tonight, just behind the fire pit, close enough to feel the warmth, but far enough to be in the outer ring, where things get quiet, where the air is a little colder, and the stone beneath you feels more like the earth's memory than flooring. It's ritual night. Not every night is, of course, only the ones the shaman calls for, and tonight apparently the dreams demanded it. You're not sure when it started exactly. Maybe it was after that windstorm. Maybe it was the matching dreams. Maybe it was the odd snowfall inside the cave, still unexplained and still ignored by everyone who'd rather not think about it too hard. But something tipped the balance, and now the air's thick with anticipation, the kind that makes people sit up straighter and keep their voices low, like they're waiting for a god to walk in through the smoke. The shaman's already begun. He stands at the centre of the firelight, body painted in streaks of red and black, forehead smeared with soot, in a line that runs down the bridge of his nose like a tree root. He holds a burning branch in one hand and a carved bone rattle in the other, shaking it in slow, rhythmic pulses that feel like they echo inside your ribs. You don't always understand what he says. He speaks in fragments, half language, half sound, words that maybe only mean something if you're half asleep and 3 days deep into hunger, but you don't need to understand it. You feel it. The group sits in a wide crescent around him, some with eyes closed, some wide open and glassy. No one speaks. The only sounds are the crackle of the fire and the soft scraping of the rattle. Occasionally he throws something into the flames, bundles of dried herbs, shavings of bark, bits of old bone. The smoke thickens, turns fragrant and sharp like pine mixed with rot, a scent that makes your nose twitch and your throat tighten. You try not to cough. No one else does. Either they're used to it or they're better at pretending. The ritual isn't meant to summon anything, at least not in the literal sense. It's not about bringing down gods or raising the dead, although depending on the story you're told, both have definitely happened once or twice. No, this is about clearing, about brushing the cave clean of whatever the wind brought in, about asking the old ones, the ones who left handprints and hunted shadows, to keep watching, keep helping, keep holding the cold back just a little longer. There's a silence to it all that's heavier than noise, like even the fire is waiting for permission to crack too loud. The shaman circles the fire, stepping lightly as if the stone might wake up angry. He passes behind you, the rattle's rhythm buzzing just past your ear. You close your eyes for a moment, let the warmth press against your skin, and focus on the sound. You try not to think about the dream again, but it's still there, coiled in your mind like a snake in a hollow log. Bone tree, hand sky, fish with eyes like yours. It doesn't feel like imagination. It feels like memory. Borrowed, maybe. Or returned. As the ritual deepens, the fire flares. A gust of air from the back, or maybe just the heat catching dry sap in the wood. But it sends shadows reeling up the walls. For a heartbeat, the whole cave flickers like it's made of cloth instead of stone. You see 1,000 handprints dancing. You see a bison stampede across the ceiling. You see the mammoth fur ripple beside you, though no one moved. And then it's gone. The shaman stops. The rattle falls silent. He crouches low, sets the burning stick into the fire, and smears more soot down his arms with both palms, like he's coating himself in silence. Then he speaks. Only one word. Listen. No one answers. No one needs to. You're already listening. Everyone is. He tells a story, his voice low and grainy like a stone sliding down a mountainside. It's not a story you've heard before, which is strange because most of the oral histories cycle every few months. This one is older, sharper, about a cave that moved on its own, followed a clan across a frozen plain. Every night they'd sleep inside it, and every morning it would be somewhere else. But one night, the cave forgot them, left them behind. When the cold came, they called for it. They begged. And the cave came back, but it was different. It had mouths inside, eyes that didn't blink, and the walls breathed. You think it's just a tale, something the shaman's improvising based on last night's dreams. But when he finishes, no one claps. No one nods. They just sit there, blinking, trying to piece something together in their minds. Because part of you remembers that cave. Not like you were there, but like it was in your dream, or in your bones. After the story, the group begins to hum. It's not a song, just a shared vibration, like everyone's tuning forks, picking up the same invisible frequency. You hum too, not because you're told to, but because it helps. It pushes the cold back. The cave joins in, its stone belly vibrating softly as the fire dies lower, red coals pulsing like the last heartbeat of a fading giant. Eventually the ritual winds down. The shaman retreats into the back alcove alone again, dragging a smoke bundle behind him. People rise slowly, stretching limbs that have gone numb from stillness. A few speak in low voices. A few just stare at the walls, trying to make sense of what they felt. You stay seated. Something about the story clings to you. The idea of a cave that moves, a cave that forgets. What if this one forgets you? What if one night you close your eyes, and when you open them again, the cave has shifted and you're out in the open, frost already settling in your lungs? You glance around. The familiar shapes are still here. The handprints, the fur piles, the fire, now a bed of coals. But it all feels thinner, like you're inside a story, not a shelter. Eventually you crawl back to your sleeping space. The mammoth hide is still warm from earlier. Someone has left a scrap of dried meat near your spot, maybe as a thank you for something you did during the day, or maybe as an offering. You eat it slowly, chewing while staring into the last of the firelight. Then, as the others settle, you lie back and wait. You wait to see if the cave remembers you tonight. And just before your eyes shut, you whisper into the dark one last try. Don't leave. You don't even make it past sunrise before someone limps into the cave dripping blood across the floor. You hear it before you see it. The dull slap of wet hide against stone, the uneven thump of footsteps dragging behind. The sound bounces off the walls, snaps you out of a half-dream, and suddenly everyone's sitting up, wiping sleep from their faces and fumbling for whatever counts as a weapon. You grab a charred stick from the fire pit. Not ideal, but it'll do. The figure finally stumbles into the firelight, wrapped in a patchwork of furs, one arm clutched to his side and a grimace carved into his face like it's been there for years. It's Caro, one of the younger hunters, usually more mouth than muscle, but now he's grey-faced and shivering like a leaf in a storm. Blood darkens the front of his tunic, thick and already drying in crusty patches, his legs torn up, his hands trembling. You rush forward, catching him as he sinks to his knees beside the fire, his breath ragged and wild. He doesn't speak at first, just sits there, hunched, staring at the flames like they owe him an apology. Behind you, people shuffle in close. Someone calls for the healer. Someone else throws a chunk of dried moss into a bowl of water and shoves it near the fire to heat. There's no shouting, just efficient movement. This is a drill you've done before. The healer arrives fast, a woman with hands like tree roots and eyes that don't blink enough. She kneels beside Cairo and starts peeling back the layers of his clothes, mumbling to herself in a stream of words, half language, half spell. You've seen her work before. She can close a wound faster than anyone, but she always talks to it first, as if it might argue. You watch the process, but you're not really seeing it. You're focused on Caro's face. His expression hasn't changed. His eyes are wide, but dull, like they've gone too far in and now can't come back. You know that look. That's the look of someone who saw something that shouldn't be. Finally he speaks. "It wasn't just a boar," he whispers. The healer pauses. "So does everyone else," that's all he says for a while, then he adds, "I heard it breathing. Behind me, in the trees." You sit down beside him, lowering your torch. "What did it look like?" "I didn't see it," he mutters. "It saw me." His voice is distant, but not broken, just numb. And the words, simple as they are, send a chill through the group that has nothing to do with the cold air swirling in from the entrance. The healer continues her work, wrapping his leg, pressing warmed bark salve into the cuts. Caro winces but doesn't complain. Pain doesn't scare him now. Whatever happened out there already did the scaring. By mid-morning, the whole cave smells like pine sap, blood and smoke. The fire's roaring again, not for warmth this time, for safety, for morale. People tend to the tasks anyway, grinding bone for tools, sorting through smoked meat, melting snow for water. But there's a tension in the air, sharp and thin like a pulled bowstring. You're assigned fire duty. You don't mind. It keeps you in the heart of the cave, with your back to the wall and your eyes on the entrance. But your thoughts wander. To what Caro said. To what might have followed him. To the stories the shaman told, and the dreams that have been growing teeth lately. Later that day, the elder who speaks the least leans over and says, "Do you know the story of the white hunger?" You shake your head. The name alone is enough to raise the hairs on your neck. It's not an animal, he says, not even a spirit. It's a silence that hunts, doesn't roar, doesn't growl. You just stop hearing birds, then stop hearing your own thoughts, and then you're gone. You glance at Caro, now asleep under heavy hides, fever already working its way into his skin. His breaths are shallow. His hands twitch now and then, like he's still running in his dreams. The elder continues, "My mother said it used to follow people through the snow. Never attacked right away. Just followed. Days, sometimes. Waiting. Watching. Like it wanted you to feel it. You try to laugh, to shake it off, but your voice catches in your throat. You felt watched before, plenty of times, especially during long hunts or late-night firewatch. But lately, it's been more than that. Not just the sensation of eyes, something closer. You turn back to your fire, jabbing a stick into the embers, stirring them like they owe you something. The flames jump and crack, tossing sparks toward the ceiling. You focus on that. The noise, the light, the things you can understand. That night the watch is doubled. No one says it out loud, but everyone knows why. People huddle closer to the fire. No snoring tonight. Too many ears listening for a breath that doesn't belong. You pull your mammoth hide tight around you, but it feels thinner somehow. Like its warmth can't quite get past the unease settling in your gut. The cave isn't colder, but it feels colder, like the heat is getting swallowed, sucked out by something standing just outside the light. Caro moans in his sleep. The healer hums a soft tune, brushing his forehead with fingers stained red. The fire pops. The wind doesn't howl this time, it whispers. A soft, dragging sound like fur across stone. You don't sleep much. Instead, you lie there, staring at the dark ceiling, watching the shadows ripple with every shift in the fire. You try not to blink too long. Try not to look too hard at the corner where the light doesn't quite reach. You whisper a small prayer, not to any god you know by name, just to whatever's listening. Keep the fire alive, keep the cold outside, keep the silence moving. There's a conversation you've had quietly with yourself every winter since you started remembering your own thoughts. What if we just slept until spring? Not in shifts, not in shared warmth, not in the fractured rhythms of night watch and fire duty, but all the way through. Deep, dreamless, hibernation like the bears do it. You bring it up in passing one day while scraping marrow from a leg bone, mostly as a joke. What if we could just bury ourselves in furs and sleep straight to the thaw? Someone laughs, someone else grunts like it's not a terrible idea. But then a third voice, older, slower, says, "There was a man who did that once." And of course now you've got to know. She tells you his name was Mornak and he was either a genius or completely broken by the cold. One year, after losing his whole family in an avalanche and nearly freezing during a failed hunt, he announced he was going to sleep through the winter like a beast. Not just nap and wake, but truly sleep. Full bear mode. He built a pit in the deepest part of the cave, lined it with moss, packed it with furs, and crawled inside like he was climbing back into the world's belly. No one thought he'd last a week, but Mornak, stubborn as fire, stayed put. He didn't die, that's the weird part. He woke up in spring, thin as bone, beard halfway down his chest, skin like tree bark. Didn't speak for 3 days, just blinked at the sun like it owed him money. When he finally talked again, he said the dreams had kept him company. Said he'd met gods in the dark. Said the cold taught him its real name. Everyone laughed, of course, called it madness. But no one ever caught him shivering after that, and he never needed a fur again. The story catches fire in your mind, and you can't stop turning it over. Could you do it? Could anyone? You mention it casually during fire duty that night. Would it work, you ask? If we ate enough, stored enough heat, could we sleep the whole season? Some laugh, others don't. The healer, sharp-eyed, always listening, says it's impossible. The body would shut down, muscles would rot, minds would slip. But then she shrugs. But so does a bear's, and they don't die. The younger woman perks up, says she once slept for 3 days straight after eating an entire hare and half a root bulb. You raise an eyebrow. And did you wake up enlightened? No, she says. I woke up starving. Still, it plants the seed. The idea that sleep could be more than recovery. that maybe if you went deep enough, if you curled tightly enough into warmth and silence, you could skip the worst of winter. Slide under it like ice over a stream. And it's not like you haven't already noticed the shift in your own sleep. The way your body seems to demand more of it. Longer stretches, heavier drops. You wake up slower now, often not remembering when you drifted off or when someone fed the fire last. You're sliding between the hours, gliding through the cold like your bones are learning to wait instead of endure. You're not the only one. Others are sleeping more too. The cave gets quieter each night, the chorus of snores and mutters tapering into silence that lasts longer than it should. Even the children, usually the last to nod off, have started going still earlier, like some internal rhythm is sinking across the group. You wonder if it's the cold, or the dreams, or maybe both. One night, you lie back beneath the mammoth hide, full from a rare surplus of meat, and you let yourself try. Just to see. You pull your limbs close, press your cheek against your favourite sleeping rock and breathe slow, deliberate. You think of bears, of burrows, of old Mornak blinking at the sun. You tell your body, sleep now, don't wake, wait for green. It almost works. You slip deep. Not just deep sleep deep, but cave deep. The kind where your heartbeat slows until it's barely there. Your dreams come soft and strange, clouds shaped like bones, rivers made of fur. You see the fire from above, as if you've become the ceiling itself, watching the group shift and breathe. You don't wake until the fire's nearly gone. Hours have passed, maybe more. The cave is quiet. You're warm, impossibly so. Sweat beads at the nape of your neck, and you have to push the hide off with a grunt. Your limbs feel thick, like they belong to someone else. You blink slowly. Someone is snoring beside you, steady and deep, and for a second you forget their name. That's the part that unsettles you. Not the long sleep, not the heat, but the forgetting. Like you gave up a part of your mind for the comfort. Like you traded names for stillness. You try to shake it off. Sit up. Look around. Most of the group is still asleep, even though it should be morning by now. Only 2 people are awake. One tending the fire, one staring into the shadows like they're trying to remember why they're awake at all. You whisper their name. It takes them a moment to respond. Something's changing. You don't say it out loud, but you feel it in your gut. This winter is longer. Not in days, but in depth, in weight. It's pressing down harder, wrapping itself around your group like a slow, cold vine. And the more you sleep, the more it feels like the cold wants you to. Like it's offering you a deal. Rest, and I won't hurt you. Sleep, and I'll keep your bones safe. You think of Mornak again, of how he came back strange, of how he never wore fur again. And a dark thought whispers in the back of your mind. What if we're all doing it? What if this entire cave is sinking into the cold's dream? You crawl closer to the fire, rub warmth back into your hands, and listen to the cave breathe. There's still time, still light. But part of you wonders if the cold is winning after all. Not by killing you, but by convincing you it's easier not to wake. The cave's getting smarter. That's what you catch yourself thinking one morning as you wedge a hot stone deeper into a pile of hides. It's early, barely light outside, but you're already elbow deep in the daily fire ritual. Not the big hearth in the centre, but the smaller one in the side alcove where you've started building your personal heat cache. A little nest of warmth you maintain obsessively. You arrange the stones in layers, large, flat ones on the bottom to hold heat longer, smaller ones at the top to absorb quickly. You stoke the fire in shifts now, just enough to heat the stones without wasting precious wood. The others do it too. Everyone's got their own heating tricks, but you? You've perfected the hot rock method. It started as an accident. A stone rolled too close to the fire one night, and when you moved it, it burned your fingers. Not fun, but also not nothing. Because after it cooled a bit, you slid it under your blanket and boom, instant bliss. Like your own little son wrapped in mammoth fur. Now you do it every night. You have a system. You carry your stones to the fire at dusk, heat them for a few hours, then line them along your sleeping space like sacred totems. One at your feet, one near your chest, one under your knees. If placed correctly, it feels like you're lying in the centre of the earth. And if you're generous, you let someone else borrow a stone now and then, usually in exchange for meat or some extra firewood. You're not a monster. Today, though, something strange happens. You shift a particularly heavy stone from the fire, expecting it to be scalding, but it's not. It's warm, yes, but not like before. It's holding the heat differently, softer, deeper, like it's remembering how much you need it. Which is ridiculous, of course. Stones don't think. But you run your hand along its surface, feeling the smooth groove forming where you've carried it over and over again. And part of you wonders if it does remember. If the cave is learning from you, it's not just the rocks. Other things have started to adjust. The wind through the entrance seems to change direction more often now, like the cave is angling its mouth just enough to block it. The fire draft works better. The smoke doesn't pool as thick. The back corner that used to flood with meltwater every 3 days? Bone dry now. You mention it casually during Firewatch and someone else nods. Cave's protecting us, they say, like it's obvious. You want to laugh, but the words linger. Because maybe it is. Or maybe you're just finally paying attention to things the others have always known. There's a reason some call the cave her. As if she's not just rock and dark and hollow, but something older. Something listening. You can't say you believe it outright. But you don't not believe it. Especially not after the rock. That night you're careful. You wrap your hot stones in thick bark layers, then place them beneath your bedroll like usual. But something feels different. The heat doesn't just radiate, it stays. Hours pass and they're still warm. Not blazing, just steady. Like a pulse. You sleep deeper than usual, and not just deep, anchored. It's the kind of sleep that erases your name. You don't dream. Or if you do, the dream is just black. Thick, restful nothing. When you wake, the first thing you feel is warmth. The second thing is a heavy pressure on your chest. You panic for a second, thinking someone's rolled onto you. But when you sit up, there's nothing there. Just your blanket, your sleeping rock, and a faint warmth that feels like it's sinking into you, instead of radiating out. You touch the rock. Still warm, but not from fire. It's different now. You whisper to no one in particular, "Did you keep me warm?" And the cave, silent as always, says nothing. But it feels like something shifts. Like someone turned down the cold just a notch. You say nothing to the others. This feels private. You watch them drag stones to the fire and back again, and you wonder if they feel it too. If their stones are changing, learning, listening. Later, while foraging near the mouth of the cave, you stumble across a ridge of stones exposed by a snowmelt trickle. At first glance, nothing unusual, but one stone, dull red, cracked in a spiral pattern, catches your eye. You touch it, and it's warm, barely, but definitely warmer than it should be. You pull it free and bring it back with you. That night, you add it to your pile. It doesn't hold the fire's heat long, but it hums in your hand. You keep it near your head when you sleep, just in case it wants to talk, because now you're convinced the rocks are listening, the cave is shifting, and maybe that's how your ancestors made it through the worst of winter. Not just by fire and furs, but by learning how to speak to the world around them. Not with words, with rhythm, with breath, with patience. You find yourself doing it too, whispering to the walls before bed, thanking the ceiling when it doesn't drip, stroking the edge of your sleeping stone with your thumb until you fall asleep. Someone catches you one night and asks what you're doing. You just say making friends. They laugh. But that night they wrap their own sleeping stone in moss and murmur something to it before bed. Maybe they felt it too. Sleep would be a lot easier if there weren't two small hyperactive cave kids using a rib bone as a sword and yelling about saber-tooths while the rest of you are trying to doze off. You're not even annoyed, yet, just baffled by their energy. It's the middle of winter. You've spent the entire day collecting firewood, patching the hide flap, and dragging hot rocks around like you're running a prehistoric spa service, and somehow these two tiny humans are treating bedtime like it's a party, and they're the guests of honour. The older one, probably 7 winters at best, has a wild mop of hair that seems to defy the laws of temperature. It's always standing on end, like he's constantly electrified, despite living in an age with no electricity. He's the ringleader, clearly. The smaller one, just old enough to walk without face planting, is his loyal shadow. Wherever the tall one stomps, the little one waddles after, dragging a fur scrap behind him like it's a magic cloak. Right now, they're engaged in an elaborate battle against an invisible snow beast that apparently lives near the fire pit and eats feet. Specifically feet. Yours, in fact, because you're currently the closest sleeper to the hearth. Careful, the older one hisses dramatically, waving his bone sword. It can smell wiggly toes. Your toes, tucked under the mammoth hide and blissfully unaware of the threat, twitch on reflex. The smaller one lets out a war cry, less of a scream and more of a high-pitched gurgle, and attempts a sneak attack on the fire beast by pouncing on your sleeping area. You jolt upward. The mammoth hide slides halfway off your shoulder, the cold rushes in, and suddenly you're no longer drifting into sleep. You're a soldier in the tow war. You glare at them, groggy and unimpressed. They freeze. There's a beat of total silence. Then the older one grins and says, "We protected you." You blink. From what? He points solemnly at the fire pit. The beast was here. You didn't see it because we stabbed it. You look at the fire, it crackles innocently. "Great job," you mumble. "Please stab it quieter next time." They nod like you've just knighted them, and then go charging into another part of the cave, where their next victim, an elder trying to massage their arthritic knees, is in for a rude awakening. You lie back down and pull the hide over your head. This is the nightly routine now. Sleep is no longer just a personal act of rest. It's a communal negotiation that includes dodging imaginary monsters, listening to kids recite their version of what dreams mean, and praying to every old god that someone tucks those little chaos goblins in before they gain a second wind. Some people hate it. They call the kids disruptive, annoying, loud, and okay, accurate, but you don't hate it. Not really, because the kids are warmth, not just physically, though one of them has definitely crawled into your furs in the dead of night more than once, and passed out like a human furnace, but emotionally, spiritually, they're a reminder that life isn't just about surviving the winter, it's about surviving it with something worth carrying forward. You grew up without that. Your early winters were quiet, too quiet. A cave full of tired adults, silent fires, and conversations whispered like they might shatter if spoken too loudly. No laughter, no wild sword fights, no beasts that eat feet. So yeah, it's annoying when they poke you in the eye at dawn because they're bored. It's infuriating when they knock over the stone water basin while practicing swimming. But it's also good. It's alive. Later you watch as one of them climbs into their designated sleeping space, a small pile of hides near the middle of the group, safely flanked by two exhausted parents who look like they've aged 5 winters in the last one. The older kid tugs the smaller one down by the arm and mutters something that sounds suspiciously like, "No, I get the soft rock tonight." A brief scuffle. The parents sigh but don't intervene. Eventually the smaller one falls asleep half on top of the other, mouth open, face smushed into the hide like a squashed turnip. The elder child stays awake longer, staring at the fire with the blank blinking gaze of someone watching thoughts pass like clouds. You remember that feeling, the not quite understanding of things but sensing something is out there, just beyond reach. The way the fire seemed to speak in shapes, the way the adults talked about death like it was a cousin who might visit soon but wouldn't stay long. You remember lying awake, wondering if you'd live through the night. Not because anything was chasing you, but because that's just what the cold does. It makes you question your own endurance. You wonder what the kids will remember of these winters. Will they carry these nights with them like you do? Will they remember the fire, the games, the beast hunting before bed? Or just the cold, just the hunger? You hope it's the former. Later, when the cave goes quiet and the fire dims, you wake briefly to find a tiny foot pressed into your ribcage. The older one has somehow rotated 90 degrees in his sleep and kicked his blanket onto your side. You sigh, shift him gently, and toss the hide back over both of you. He mutters something in a dream voice. "Don't forget the beast." You whisper back, "I won't." And maybe you mean the pretend one. Or maybe you mean the real ones. The ones you fight every day. Cold, fear, memory, the invisible things. Either way, you fall asleep to the sound of tiny snores and soft giggles that fade into the background like the wind. Because in this cave, in this brutal winter, even chaos is a kind of comfort. And toe beasts or not, you wouldn't trade these moments for all the silence in the world. The trick to midnight snacking in a cave full of sleeping, half-starved humans is subtlety. You don't sneak. Sneaking draws attention. No, you move slowly, deliberately, like a glacier in fur leggings. No sudden movements, no wrapper rustling. Not that you have wrappers, but dried meat still makes noise if you're not careful. And above all else, you do not drop anything. Once, last winter, someone fumbled a strip of roasted marrow fat, and it slid across the stone floor like a screaming animal, drawing 3 adults and a dog to the scene in less than 30 seconds. They say it was a raccoon that got it. There are no raccoons here. Tonight you wait until the cave is in full slumber mode. One person snoring like a boulder rolling uphill, another mumbling about ghosts in their dreams. The fire has burned down to a soft, pulsing cradle of embers, and most of the group is tucked so deep in their furs they look like the contents of a forgotten laundry pile. You slide out from under your blanket like a shadow. The stone beneath your feet is cold enough to make your bones wince, but hunger wins, always does. Your stomach has been growling for hours, ever since you gave your last dried root scrap to the kid who said his dreams wouldn't come unless he had something salty. What do you even do with that kind of logic? You gave it to him anyway. Now you're paying the price. You reach the back corner stash, a little nook in the wall that gets used as a food cache during the worst weeks. Everything is labelled in the cave's universal language. Don't touch means it's stacked behind heavy stones. Maybe touch is wrapped in animal gut and tucked loosely in furs, and definitely touch is the stuff so hard and dry even the dogs pretend not to see it. You go for the middle tier. You find a bundle of dried berries and something that might be smoked bird thigh. You sniff it. It doesn't smell like rot. That's a win. You peel off a tiny chunk, just big enough to chew silently, and slide back to your sleeping area, sitting upright like a guard as you eat. It's chewy. That's being generous. It's dry and weirdly sour, like someone tried to preserve a flavour and ended up bottling bitterness instead. But it works. A few bites, and your stomach quiets. You look around as you chew. The cave is soft in its silence. Not silent, just resting. You can hear the fire's breath, the occasional shift of bodies, that one guy's nose whistle, and you're alone in this small act of survival. There's something sacred about these moments. The midnight snack isn't just about food, it's a quiet rebellion. A moment of yours carved into a shared existence. When the whole group's needs shout louder than your own all day, this is when you get to listen inward. Chew, think, breathe. You think about the times before the cave, when your people wandered, sleeping under branches or against cliffs, hoping the sky wouldn't collapse on them in ice. There was no food stash then, no midnight snack, just hunger, raw and constant, gnawing at your ribs like a second mouth. The cave changed that. It gave you options. Not luxury, sure, but the difference between starving and managing hunger is enormous. The fact that you can sneak a bite at midnight without risking death or betrayal? That's civilization, right there. And of course someone ruins it. You hear a shuffle behind you and freeze. You glance over your shoulder. It's the shaman. Of course. He's awake. Just standing there like he's always been there. Like he grew from the wall. Hair down, eyes half closed, fingers holding a small satchel that's definitely seen better centuries. You try to pretend you're not chewing. That never works. He walks over slowly and sits beside you without a word, cross-legged like a teacher preparing to launch into something philosophical and uncomfortable. He opens his satchel and pulls out 2 withered roots. He hands you one. You accept it. You both chew in silence for a while, and then he speaks. You know, midnight is when the soul is hungriest. You raise an eyebrow. I thought it was the stomach. He shrugs. Same thing. You're not sure if you agree, but you don't argue. With him, it's better to let the wisdom roll through you like smoke. Maybe you'll understand it in a dream. After a while, he says, "Food tastes stronger in the dark." You nod. He's not wrong. This berry jerky combo you've been working on tastes like a 5-course meal right now. Every chew, every gritty crunch of seed, every pull of sour bird meat feels like it matters. The shaman sets his root down and stands. Before leaving, he says, "Don't feed just the body." Then he disappears into the dark. You finish eating slowly, savouring the final bite. You're full enough now. Not satisfied exactly, but quiet. You lie back down and pull your blanket up to your chin, letting the warmth trap your breath. Your mind wanders not just to food, but to what the shaman said. Maybe the soul really does get hungry. Maybe that's why you find yourself awake some nights with the need to do something. Eat, think, hum, sketch a shape in the ash with your finger. Feed the invisible parts, the ones that keep you human while everything around you demands survival. Eventually you drift off again. Your dreams are strange. A cave full of roots, a river made of broth, a hand that offers you fruit in the shape of a heart. You wake up once, thinking you still taste berries on your tongue. Then you smile, because the best part about a midnight snack, you sleep like you earned it. You'd think after weeks of sleeping shoulder to shoulder with the same 15 people, plus the occasional stray dog, stowaway child, and the one elder who talks in his sleep about imaginary fish kings, things would settle into some kind of nightly order, a rhythm, a routine. And for the most part, that's true. But every night, just as the fire starts its slow fade, and people begin wriggling into their sleeping furs, the game begins. You call it the battle for the fire spot. It's not official, no one ever announces it, but you all feel it. The invisible pressure of bodies shifting, nudging, drifting just slightly closer to the sacred centre. The warmest, most desirable patch of floor near the hearth. The prime real estate, the hot seat, the promised land of warmth and uninterrupted sleep. If you're there, you're golden. If you're even slightly too far, you'll be woken at 3 a.m. by the ice ghost nibbling at your toes. Tonight it starts early. Evening chores are done. The cave smells like smoked roots and damp leather. People are moving slower, tired and full, the good kind of exhausted that comes from surviving just one more day. You're wrapping up fire duty, poking the coals until they glow just the right shade of demon orange, and you notice it. That subtle migration of furs toward the centre. Just an inch here, a rearranged bedroll there, someone casually stretching closer to the heat. You narrow your eyes. It's going to be one of those nights. You know the players. There's Miru, queen of casual dominance, who somehow always ends up front row to the flames, even though she swears she prefers the edge. And there's Varn, who acts like he doesn't care where he sleeps, but just so happens to set up next to the fire pit every single night without fail. Then there's you, clever, strategic, with a blanket already half folded into a triangle of opportunity. The battle begins. You accidentally leave your fur roll right next to the fire during the evening stretch. Miru eyes it. You pretend not to notice. Varn leans against the wall near your spot, rubbing his back like he's choosing a strategic rock to sleep on, but he's definitely staking out territory. Everyone's subtle. No one's trying to start a fight. The fire doesn't tolerate drama. It's sacred, but it's also a battleground. And you're determined to win tonight because last night, you woke up with your nose pressed against a wall so cold it felt like stone betrayal. Not again. You return with your water skin and casually sit where your fur is. Varn frowns. You smile. The game is on. But then it happens. The great equalizer. A child sneezes, loudly, repeatedly, like an explosion of tiny lungs. Suddenly the entire sleep circle reevaluates itself. People are not only calculating heat distribution, but also distance from the biohazard zone. The battle for warmth now includes a secondary objective: don't get sick. Miru makes the first move. She sacrifices proximity and drifts slightly farther back, wrapping herself tighter in furs with a pointed look of peace. I like the cool air, she lies. Varn scoots closer, assuming this is his moment. But the child sneezes again, this time with added snot. Varn winces. You seize your opportunity. You slide your fur slightly forward, angle your body sideways, and there it is, the perfect angle. Just close enough to the heat without entering the splash zone. You're in. Fire adjacent. Prime position. You try not to gloat. You settle in, spreading your fur like a royal cloak, arranging your hot rocks strategically under your knees and feet. You have won the battle of the fire spot, tonight anyway. Victory tastes like warm air and smugness. The others take their places. One by one the group settles. Someone coughs. Someone else passes gas. The usual symphony. But tonight there's extra shifting. More than usual. Everyone seems a little twitchy. And you realise it's not just about warmth or germs. It's the dreams again. They've been getting heavier. Stranger. People don't say it outright, but you can see it in their eyes. That lingering hunted look when they wake up. The way they stare into the fire like they're trying to shake something off. And now, more than ever, people want to be close to the flames, not just for heat, but for protection. You lie down and roll onto your side, letting the firelight paint the inside of your eyelids orange. Around you, you hear the quiet murmurs of people drifting towards sleep. Someone's whispering an old rhyme, a chant passed down from winter to winter, something about snow spirits and hidden hearts. You don't know all the words, but you hum along anyway. And then, just as your body starts to give in to sleep, there's a disturbance. A loud shuffle, a body, landing right. Next to you. It's Varn. He's dragged his entire fur pile into the exact space between you and the fire, using the chaos of the group's shifting to wedge himself in like a smug cave eel. You open one eye. He doesn't look at you, but he knows what he did. You don't speak. This is diplomacy now. You shift closer, just enough to reclaim a sliver of warmth. He doesn't move. Fine. You both lie there, toe to toe. pretending to be asleep while engaging in the ancient ritual of passive-aggressive heat warfare. Eventually the fire dims. The warmth spreads evenly. You feel sleep overtaking you, not as a sudden thing, but as a tide pulling gently. In the dark, you hear Varn whisper, "Nice try." You whisper back, "Enjoy the smoke in your face." Then silence. The battle for the fire spot ends in a draw, and you sleep, warm and victorious in spirit, knowing tomorrow night it all begins again. Somewhere between dusk and sleep, in that soft grey hour when the fire hasn't yet been fed and the cold tiptoes back in, you become aware of it. The flirting. The slow, awkward, unspoken ritual that humans somehow insist on maintaining, even while wrapped in filth-covered furs and surviving one snowstorm at a time. It's not obvious, not always, but it's there. The glances, the shared water skin, the extra space made during sleeping roll setup that just happens to allow two bodies to get closer. Love in the time of mammoth hides. You notice it tonight because you're lying directly across from it. You didn't mean to eavesdrop, not really, but it's hard not to when the whispers carry so clearly in the cave's acoustics. Every hushed laugh, every shy question, every nervous clearing of the throat, it all reaches you like a secret carried on warm smoke. Your eyes are closed, your face turned toward the wall, but you're very much awake. You know who it is without looking. Tekka and Solon. It's been building for days now, maybe weeks. You're not the only one who's noticed it either. The way Solon keeps accidentally ending up on water-fetching duty with her. The way Tekka gives him a half smile when he fails at stonework but gets praised for hauling firewood. It's subtle, cave romance subtle, but it's happening. Tonight they've ended up side by side near the fire, not by accident. Tekka laughed louder than she usually does during dinner. Solon has been just fixing his bedroll for the last half hour. No one says anything, but a few raised eyebrows flick through the group like sparks jumping from a fire. You shift slightly in your roll, careful not to disturb the rocks under your knees, and listen as their voices drop to murmurs. You don't hear words, just tone. Soft, hesitant, a little electric. You remember what that felt like. It's easy to forget in the cold and the survival and the endless cycle of freezing toes that people still crave this. Connection. Even here. Even now. Maybe especially now. When everything outside wants to kill you, something inside wants to touch. Wants to be touched. Not just for warmth, though warmth is certainly a factor, but for comfort. For the tiny slice of wonder that comes from knowing you're not entirely alone in the dark. You peek just once. Tekka's sitting with her knees drawn up, hands folded, staring into the fire. Solon is next to her, close but not touching, lips moving like he's telling a story just for her. Her eyes never leave the flames, but the corners of her mouth tug upward. Then she turns and says something back, and his laugh, quiet, contained, cracks the silence. You look away again, not out of politeness, but because the moment is fragile, like ice on the surface of a puddle. If you look too long, it might break. The others ignore it, or pretend to. Some are asleep, some are pretending to be, and a few are giving them space by shifting slightly away. That's how it works in the cave. There's no privacy, but there's permission. A sideways nod, a not looking, a hush of respect when two people pull their furs just slightly closer together. Eventually the murmurs fade. Tekka leans back. Solon lies down beside her, facing the ceiling. Nothing happens, not that you can see. Just silence, and the occasional shifting of bodies, the crackle of the fire, and the quiet energy of something new beginning. You smile into your blanket. You've seen cave flings before. Sometimes they're brief, sparked by a warm night and snuffed by morning. Other times they build slowly, through cold hands offered near the fire or long hunting trips shared in silence. Every relationship here is survival coded. If you're sharing body heat, that's a serious commitment. You don't curl up with just anyone, not when farts are weapons and snoring is considered a personal flaw. Still, people find ways. They carve out tenderness in between fire shifts and foot rot. You've known couples who met over crushed roots and were mated by spring. One pair found love after nearly killing each other during a fight over dried meat. Another came together after a snowstorm trapped them in a collapsed animal burrow for 2 days. When they crawled out, blinking at the sunlight, they were already finishing each other's complaints. It's not glamorous. No candlelight, no love songs. Just soft voices and fire shadows and the rustle of shared hides. You think about what it would mean to fall in love here, in this cave, in this season, in this cold. It would mean choosing someone to suffer with, not just occasionally, every night. Someone who's seen your hair tangled and your nose running and your worst dream murmured out loud in the middle of a freezing night. Someone who knows you snore and still rolls closer anyway. You wonder if you want that, if you'd even recognize it if it happened. Because sometimes survival gets so loud that love gets drowned out. But then nights like this happen, quiet, tender, and remind you it's still here, still possible. You fall asleep eventually, the cave dim and warm, Tekka and Solon breathing evenly across the way, the faintest scent of pine smoke curling in the air. You dream, vaguely, of fingers brushing fingers under blankets, of laughter echoing across stone, of finding someone who makes the cave feel less like a tomb and more like a home. When you wake, they're still sleeping side by side, and everyone pretends not to notice. You wake up wet, not sweat wet, not dew wet, not even the someone spilled a water skin in their sleep and refused to admit it, kind of wet. No, this is cave-flooded overnight wet. Your furs are soaked. Your mat, which is usually warm and dry from well-placed rocks and fire-adjacent planning, now squelches when you move. And the worst part, you only realise it after rolling over and planting your face straight into a shallow puddle of meltwater. A groggy, outraged groan escapes your throat, half protest, half prayer for mercy. The cold water trickles down your collarbone as you sit up, shaking like a dog. Around you, the cave is waking too, but this time it's not to the usual soundtrack of snoring, coughing, or casual pre-dawn flatulence. No, this time it's chaos. Ugh, the furs are dripping. Why is everything wet? I can't find my boot. Is that floating? You blink through the gloom, blinking droplets off your eyelashes, and take in the horror. The back quarter of the cave is slick with water, maybe an inch deep in places, more in others. Blankets are soaked, supplies are soggy, and someone's flint pouch is bobbing gently past your shin like it's auditioning to be a tiny boat. And this, dear listener, is what happens when you make it through 3 solid weeks of freezing, wind-battered survival and forget that sometimes snow melts. Not all at once, no, but enough. Enough for water to seep in through the cracks you thought were sealed, through the ceiling drips you thought had frozen for good, through that tiny rear crevice that's always looked a little suspicious but never gave you trouble, until now. You haul yourself to your feet, furs clinging to your legs like swamp monsters, and step out of your sleeping spot with a wet slurp. The fire has almost died during the night, leaving the space darker, colder, and more miserable than usual. Someone's already trying to reignite it, but the damp wood isn't helping. Stone's wet too, grumbles a voice near the wall. Everything's wet, another shouts. There's a brief, ugly moment when it looks like blame is about to fly. People glaring at each other, clearly preparing to accuse someone of failing to patch the cracks, or leaving something unsealed, or breathing too hard near the fire rocks. But then a kid slips in the mud and lets out such a dramatic, soggy yelp that everyone bursts into laughter instead. It's not fun laughter, not really. It's the kind of half-mad chuckle you let out when the world is collapsing around you, and the only thing left to do is laugh or scream. You go with laughter. Screaming uses too much energy. Still, the situation needs handling. You volunteer to help dig a runoff trench. Not because you're feeling particularly heroic, but because your bed is now a floating island, and you can't lie down without risking trench foot. A few others join you, mostly the ones who also woke up soaked. Misery, as it turns out, makes a decent work crew. You grab a bone shovel, already slick with use, and start scraping a line through the cave's lower slope toward the entrance. The idea is to direct the water away, give it somewhere to go. It's not the first time you've had to do this. One of the elders calls it retraining the water, as if it's a stubborn dog that just needs firm boundaries. As you dig, your mind wanders, as it often does, to the weird fragility of all this. You live inside a rock, a giant, ancient, unmoving piece of earth. It feels permanent, untouchable, and yet, all it takes is a bit of meltwater to undo weeks of comfort. One soft patch of snow, one clogged runoff channel, one night of not paying attention. You look around the cave, now transformed into a soggy, irritated community centre. Someone's trying to dry their furs by holding them over the weak flame of a rekindled fire. Another person is draining out their moss mattress, wringing it like it's a washcloth. The kid who slipped earlier has declared the puddles a lake for little mammoths, and is now staging an imaginary hunt using rocks and aggressive splashing. The rest of you are too tired to stop them. Eventually the trench starts to work. The water finds the path of least resistance and trickles obediently toward the entrance, pooling just inside the hide flap. Someone ties the flap up to let the stream escape. Cold air rushes in, of course, but at this point dry matters more than warm. You lay out your soaked furs on a flat rock close to the fire and sit beside them, bare-legged and shivering slightly. Your clothes will dry, eventually. But you've already accepted that you'll smell like mildew for at least the next few days. That's just cave life. Still, as uncomfortable as you are, you realise something strange. You're not angry. Annoyed, sure. Cold, definitely. But not angry. Because this is the deal you made when you chose to sleep in a cave surrounded by stone and snow and unpredictable seasons. You traded comfort for protection, walls for warmth, stability for survival, and most nights it's worth it. Even now, with your blankets dripping beside you and your bed floating somewhere near the wall, you'd still rather be here than outside. Later that night, once the fire is full again and the worst of the water is drained, someone tells a story. Not a myth, not a ghost tale, just a memory. Of the time their old group lost a whole cave to flood, said they woke up floating down a hill, wrapped in furs like a miserable little canoe. You all laugh again. Real laughter this time. Because it's not just about surviving, it's about doing it together. Even if together sometimes means squeezing onto one dry mat with 3 people and a dog, all of you smelling like wet stones and root stew. That night you sleep in a new spot. Drier, colder, less ideal. But you're grateful, because the cave still held, and tomorrow you'll reinforce the walls, move the stash stones and learn from it. You whisper, half out of habit, half to the cave itself. We're still here. The walls say nothing, but they don't need to. If they stayed up, that's answer enough. You're on your back just outside the cave, staring up at the stars while your butt slowly goes numb against a slab of snow-packed stone. It's freezing, obviously. Your breath curls into the night like the ghost of a mammoth, wide, slow, and vaguely judgmental. But you stay where you are, because tonight, for once, the sky is clear. And after weeks of storm clouds, cave floods, and being breathed on in your sleep by strangers with questionable hygiene, you'll take it. It's quiet out here. No snoring, no fire crackling, no children inventing foot-eating monsters. Just snow crunching faintly in the wind and the hum of the sky above. You pull your hide tighter and tilt your head back. The stars don't blink, they just burn. You know some of them now. Not their names. Those keep changing depending on who's telling the story, but their shapes. There's the long tusk of the sky mammoth, curled gently around the edge of the heavens. The claw, 5 points like fingers reaching down. The fire line where the stars fall in a row so perfect it looks like someone stitched the sky together with a glowing bone needle. Tonight the claw hangs directly overhead. You know what that means. A story's coming. Sure enough, not long after you settle into your spot, someone else appears behind you. Boots crunching softly in the snow. You glance over. It's the storyteller. She doesn't say anything, just folds her legs beside you, wraps herself in her enormous fur and leans back to stare up. For a while you sit in silence, then she speaks, voice soft, barely above the wind. Long ago the sky was empty, just black like cave walls. The world was new, cold, hungry. So the first humans climbed a mountain and threw burning sticks into the sky to light it. You glance sideways. That seems inefficient. She grins. That's why they didn't all stick. She goes on, weaving the story of the sky's birth, not with science, not with fact, but with rhythm. There's a hunter who chased a star too far and got pulled into the heavens, a fox who tried to steal the fire and scattered the embers, a woman who gave birth to a child made of ice and flame and placed him in the sky so he wouldn't melt or burn. Each story matches a constellation, each star a soul. You've heard some of this before, but never like this. Out here, under the open sky, the stories feel heavier. The cold sharpens them. The stars seem closer, like they're leaning in to listen. A few others gather behind you, forming a silent ring around the storyteller. No one talks, they just sit. The cold keeps everyone pressed into themselves, but the stories loosen the edges. You watch people's faces shift as they stare upward, eyebrows lifting at familiar tales, lips parting slightly when a new twist is revealed. Then comes the one you've been waiting for, the Sky Beast. No one agrees on its name. Some call it the Watcher, others the Devourer. But everyone agrees it's there, a shape just outside the fire line, a smear of stars that doesn't move the way it should. It's not a cluster, not exactly. But when you stare too long, The pattern pulls. The storyteller raises her hand and traces its outline. 3 stars like eyes, 2 more curving down like teeth. It doesn't chase, she says. It waits. A shiver slides down your spine that has nothing to do with the temperature. Why? Someone asks. She shrugs. Some say it used to be human, someone who climbed too high. Others say it's older than the sky itself and the stars are just its bones. But the old stories say this. When the beast grows hungry, it calls the cold. And when the cold comes, people forget how to sleep in peace. That hits. You glance at the others. No one laughs, not even a scoff. Because they felt it too. The changing sleep, the strange dreams, the way the darkness presses in more each night. You think of your own recent dreams, of caves that shift, of rivers that flow backward, of the stone beneath you breathing. You haven't told anyone, not yet, but you've been dreaming of the sky beast. You recognize those teeth. The storyteller falls silent, letting the words settle like snow. Then finally she adds one more line, almost as an afterthought. But it only sees you if you stare too long. You jerk your gaze away from the sky. A few others do the same. Someone coughs. Someone mutters a joke to break the tension, but the story stays. Later, back inside the cave, you dry your boots by the fire, hands outstretched over the low flames. The warmth sinks in, but your eyes keep drifting toward the entrance. The night wind pushes against the hide flap now and then, like a slow, insistent hand. You wonder how many others are awake, thinking of the beast, of the stars, of how far away the sky looks, and how much of it you'll never touch. Sleep comes eventually, but it's shallow. You dream of embers rising, caught in the wind, climbing higher and higher until they become stars. You dream of someone watching you from the shadows, not moving, just waiting. When you wake, the fire is almost out. The storyteller is gone, the sky still overhead, hidden by stone, but you swear you can feel it watching, just outside, just past the edge of the heat. The first snow of the thaw doesn't look like snow at all. It's slush, really. Fat, wet clumps that fall like cold spit from the sky and melt the second they touch your face. You wake to the sound of it hitting the hide flap in uneven rhythms, the kind that suggests the sky is getting bored of being winter and is now just throwing things for effect. The kind of snow that makes everything squish. Inside the cave it smells like damp fur, half-burned pine and people. Not bad exactly, not good either, just human. Like life that's been compressed into stone walls and kept there for months. But under the usual stink there's something else now, something new. Hope. It's subtle. A shift in the way people move, a little more upright, a few less layers wrapped around torsos, eyes that aren't quite as glassy. Even the fire doesn't seem as desperate tonight, just calmly burning, not begging to be fed. You spot it first when you step outside for water. The snow's still falling, but it's heavy with melt, and there, just beneath the surface of an icy patch, you see it. Green. Tiny. Barely there, barely believing it's time to live green. A sprout. Maybe moss, maybe a trick of light, but you crouch and press your fingers to it and feel that soft resistance. The tension of a plant pushing up through death. You stare at it like it just spoke your name. Back in the cave, you announce it to no one and everyone. It's coming. A few heads lift. No one says what exactly, you don't have to. The thaw. Spring. The slow, silent undoing of winter's grip. It won't be quick. Won't be easy. The deep snow will take weeks to leave the hills, and the rivers will flood before they calm. But it's started. The season is turning, and with it sleep begins to change. At first you don't notice, but then you realize you've started waking before the fire dies. You don't need the extra hot rock on your chest anymore. Your breath doesn't fog when you speak in the early morning. And your dreams, well, they're softer now. No beasts, no caves with teeth, just images that feel like memory, or maybe hope wearing a mask, birds flying, water running, your hands wrapped around green things instead of stone. And it's not just you. The others stir more often. Children wake up early, energized, annoying again. One of them even sang this morning, sang like they had something to sing about. Not a song from ritual, not a chant or a myth. Just a wordless, wandering hum that felt like sunlight trying to push through the cave walls. You wanted to hate it. You didn't. You sat in it. Let it fill the space between your ribs like it belonged there. Someone opens the storage pile, not to ration, but to count. They pull out the last of the roots, the stringy dried berries, the hardened meat no one wants unless death is knocking. And still, There's some left. You made it through the worst of it. That night the shaman doesn't paint his face. He just sits by the fire, wraps his arms around his knees, and tells a story with his eyes open. It was the first thaw, he says, and no one believed it. He describes a winter so long the trees forgot how to bend, a cold so deep the sky cracked in places. But then came a bird, just one, and a child who heard its call before anyone else. The child told the clan, and they laughed, said it was wind, said it was wishful. But the next day they found tracks, tiny ones, feathered edges, and then came the sun, not all at once but wider, and then came colour, and the world remembered how to be alive. No one claps, but everyone sits up a little straighter. That night you sleep lighter. You dream of birdsong and running water, and when you wake your blanket has slipped off your shoulders, and you're not even cold. The cave is shifting again, not groaning or cracking, just breathing differently. The stone doesn't cling to your skin like it used to. The air doesn't cut, it just brushes past. And so, the nightly rituals begin to change. Hot rocks are fewer now. People leave their furs folded back instead of cocooned tight. One person even sleeps with their face uncovered, bold like they're trying to flirt with pneumonia. You roll your eyes but admire the courage. You've begun stretching in the mornings again, arms over your head, back arched like a bow. Muscles long ignored begin to wake. It feels like being born slowly, with less screaming. Even the fire knows. It doesn't fight as hard anymore, doesn't need feeding so desperately. Sometimes it burns just for company, for the light. You catch Solon and Tekka holding hands now, not shyly, just openly. It makes sense. Fire doesn't demand secrecy like the cold did. Warmth gives you permission. You sit near the entrance more now, not to guard, just to watch. The sky's still grey most days, but not the smothering grey of midwinter. This is the kind with movement, with promise. A sliver of sun pokes through one morning. It glances off the wet stone and catches in someone's hair. Everyone sees it, but no one says a word. You all just bask, silently, like lizards who survived the end of the world. The shaman smiles for no reason that night. You notice you haven't had a nightmare in 3 sleeps. When you close your eyes, the dark doesn't feel like drowning anymore. It feels like water. Cold, sure, but familiar. Something you can float in. You wonder if the cave will miss you when you leave, because you will, soon. Once the thaw finishes its slow work and the river's clear, you'll pack what's left of the food, wrap your tools in hide, and walk. The same way you walked here before winter. The same way your ancestors walked, always chasing that thin green edge of survival. But tonight, you're still here. Still warm, still sleeping in the stone ribs of a beast who kept you alive. And you say, not aloud but in the quiet voice inside your chest, thank you, not just to the cave, but to the fire, to the people, to your body which carried you through, to the stars which kept watching, to yourself. You sleep soundly, and for the first time in months you don't wake up once. You hear it before you see it. A low, hollow knock like someone tapping 2 stones together deep in the woods. The kind of sound that doesn't belong to animals or wind, too rhythmic to be random, too soft to be threatening. At first you think it's in your head, a leftover from a dream, but then it comes again. Knock, knock, knock. You sit up in your bedroll, fur still clinging to your neck, your hair matted in the shape of your pillow rock. The cave is still dark but not cold. The embers are alive, pulsing quietly like the heartbeat of the night. You're not the only one awake. Across the cave a few others are stirring, faces blinking into the half-dark like owls. Do you hear that? Someone whispers. You nod. The knocking stops. It shouldn't be unsettling, but it is. Not terrifying, just unfamiliar. And after a winter of becoming intimately familiar with every cough, creak, fart and snore in this cave, unfamiliar sets the teeth on edge. Someone stands and makes for the entrance. You follow, instinct tugging at your gut, the way it always does when something breaks the night's spell. You wrap your hide tighter and duck beneath the flap. Outside, the air is thick with fog. Not quite rain, not quite snow, just moisture suspended in hesitation. The forest glows faintly under a sky that can't decide if it's dawn. You wait. Then the knocking comes again. This time from farther away, somewhere down near the tree line, echoing off the frozen bark. What is that? Someone whispers behind you. And then something moves, just a flash. A figure, small, cloaked in something that doesn't look like fur. Pale fabric, maybe, or feathers. It vanishes into the trees before anyone can speak. Someone mutters, "Spirit." Someone else. Or just someone who lost their group. But no one chases it. You all just stand there, squinting at the space it used to be, like the trees might cough up the truth if you stare long enough. Later, back inside, everyone's unsettled. Not panicked, just tight. The kind of quiet where people stir their soup without eating it. The kind where no one quite makes eye contact. Even the shaman seems more brittle than usual, chewing the end of a carved stick as he stares into the fire. What if it's a sign, someone finally asks. Of what? He shrugs. End of the season? End of the cave? Someone else says, maybe it's just the forest reminding us it's still out there. You think of that knock, the rhythm, the way it seemed to ask for something, like a question with no voice. You've heard plenty of forest stories, every clan has them. Women made of bark who steal voices, children who vanish after following glowing eyes into the trees, wolves that walk upright when the moon hangs low, but this felt different. Less legend, more invitation. Still, nothing happens that night, or the next. The weather holds steady. The thaw continues. People get back to the business of packing. Roots are bundled, tools sharpened. You help wrap a flint blade in hide and realise your fingers are no longer cracked from the cold. A small miracle, but the forest isn't done. 2 nights later, someone else hears it. Not knocking this time, scratching. Gentle, deliberate, against stone, right at the back of the cave. You're awake when it happens, you don't move, just lie still, listening as the sound drags down the rock in long, slow lines. Shh. Pause. Shh. You sit up quietly. The person beside you breathes through their nose like they're trying not to scream. The scratching goes on for a minute, then stops. No one gets up. No one dares. Because what do you even do with that? The walls are solid. You know that. You checked them during the flood. There's no opening back there. And yet, the next morning someone finds a mark. Just one. A shallow groove in the stone. Not natural, not erosion. Like something with claws, not large but sharp, dragged a pattern into the wall. Not a picture, not a symbol. Just a line, curved slightly, ending in a dot. Maybe it's from before, someone offers, but no one believes it. By the end of that day, 2 families decide to leave early. Packs half full, fire barely out. They walk down the path without saying goodbye. No one stops them. You stay. Not out of courage, not out of disbelief. Just curiosity. If the forest is knocking, you kind of want to know why. So that night you volunteer for outside fire duty. You sit on a rock with your back to the cave, a small fire in front of you, just enough to keep your fingers flexible. The night breathes around you, fog again. Trees like ghosts with roots. You wait, hours pass, then movement, from the right, a flicker. You turn, but there's nothing. Then left, closer this time. You stare into the trees and speak softly like you're talking to a friend. If you're a spirit, knock once. Silence. If you're just cold, knock twice. Nothing. You smile despite yourself. Figures. But then, softly. Knock. Knock. You freeze. It comes from behind a tree not 10 paces away. You can't see the figure. You're not even sure it's there. But the sound was real. Your heart pounds, not in fear, but in awe. You don't move, don't breathe, and then nothing. The rest of the night passes in silence. When you tell the group in the morning, no one mocks you, no one laughs. They just nod, as if they were waiting for it. As if deep down they already knew that when the snow starts to melt, the world outside begins to wake, and some things, some beings, remember who you are. Whether they're calling you out or welcoming you back, that part's still unclear, but the season's changing. And something is watching. The day you finally see the sun again, really see it. Not through mist, not a half-glow filtered through cloud, but full and bright and arrogant in a blue sky. It's almost too much. You squint like it's an insult. It beams back at you like it's been waiting this whole time to remind you who's boss. You step out of the cave mid-morning, led more by instinct than reason, following the new rhythm of warmth in your bones. No one says anything, but everyone feels it. The cave itself seems to sigh when you open the flap. A last breath of winter, let go. Outside, the snow hasn't fully melted. Thick drifts still pile in the shadows, but the top layer is watery now, slush pooling around patches of brown earth. It smells like rot. Not in a bad way, in the real way. Like things that died a few moons ago finally surrendering their secrets to the dirt. You kneel and touch the ground with your bare hand. It's wet but not frozen. Your fingers come away muddy. That's the signal. Spring isn't here. Not yet. But it's sent an envoy. Behind you, the cave begins to stir. One by one, people step out. Not hurried, not all at once, like animals peeking out of burrows after a long hibernation. The kids are first, of course, half-dressed, barefoot, wide-eyed. Then the hunters, who immediately start sniffing the air like they expect elk to walk right up and present themselves. Then the elders, slower, cautious, but with a look you recognise. Finally. You glance around and realise it's been months since you saw some of these faces in full light. In firelight, everyone becomes shadows. Warm, yes, but still hidden. But here, under the real sun, their features return. Lines, scars, flecks of colour in the eyes that went unnoticed all winter. You catch Solon blinking hard, wiping at his eyes like the brightness stings. Teka reaches for his hand. Someone laughs. A real one. Loud and sudden and startled, like it slipped out before they could catch it. Then another joins, and another. You find yourself smiling and you don't even know why. It spreads. The entire group, standing ankle-deep in meltwater, covered in cave dust and winter grime, begins to laugh. For no reason. For every reason. You double over, tears from the brightness mixing with tears from the laugh. And when it's done, everyone stands there breathing hard as if the very act of joy was physical labour. Later, you gather at the cave mouth, fire built not out of necessity but celebration. Someone produces a pouch of dried berries that had been stashed away for emergency morale. Today qualifies. You chew them slowly, savouring the sharp sweetness, the way it sticks in your teeth like something worth remembering. As the sun climbs, the cave begins to empty. Tools are checked, sleds unearthed, hides aired out. The stink of old meat and mould gets burned out with sage and laughter. Someone finds a stash of forgotten root liquor and passes it around in a carved horn. You sip once and nearly choke. It tastes like spicy mud, but it's warm. It works. The healer checks everyone for frostbite damage. A few toes, a few fingers, nothing unexpected. Miru shows off her cracked knuckles like war wounds. Varn jokes that his foot still smells like wet mammoth. You pretend you don't agree. You spend the day outside, which feels rebellious. Every winter instinct screams get back in the cave, but you ignore it. You need this. The wind against your cheeks, even if it's still sharp. The light on your skin, even if it stings. You even roll up your sleeves and press your forearms to the sun-warmed rocks, just to feel something that isn't fur or flame. By late afternoon, a few early scouts return from higher ground. Snow's thinning on the ridges. Streams are moving again. Tracks. Real ones. Deer. That last one causes a ripple. You feel it move through the group like a heartbeat. The possibility of meat that isn't dried or stringy. Real flesh. Real fat. The hunt will come soon. The migration begins in your head before it reaches your feet. Already, you're mapping the route. The rivers you'll need to cross. The places you can rest. The ridges that stay cold even in spring. You can almost feel the pack on your back, the pull of forward motion. But it's not time yet. Tonight, one more sleep in the cave. You tell yourself to remember it. Not just the cave itself, but this version of it. The one warmed by sun, softened by thaw, filled with chatter that's no longer hushed by cold. The last sleep is different. Always is. It's not the desperate, shivering sleep of deep winter. Not even the cautious rest of the early thaw. It's the full, satisfied, deeply earned sleep that says, you made it. You wrap your furs one last time, but leave your arms free. You sleep close to the entrance now. Not for warmth, but to feel the breeze. To hear the forest again. The real one, not the imagined one behind your dreams. You hear water trickling down from the mountains. Birds chirping. Actual birds. It's like the earth is creaking awake. You drift off. Not quickly, but peacefully. And your dreams? They're not caves, not fires, not even stars. You dream of grass brushing your knees, of antlers flashing in green dappled light, of a path leading out of shadow, over a ridge, and into air that smells like things growing. You dream of your feet on dirt, and when you wake, the first bird is calling. Morning doesn't sneak in like it used to. It arrives, bold, decisive. Not with the slow creep of grey twilight over the cave floor, but with full sunlight blasting through the flap like a spear, landing right across your face. You squint, groan and roll over, but it's no use. You're awake, and so is everyone else. Today is departure day. It's not official, not announced, not even fully agreed upon. But you feel it. The cave has been nudging you out for days now. The smoke clings heavier. The walls feel closer. The fire crackles, but not in that cosy, wrap-yourself-up way. More like it's growing impatient, snapping at the edges. And your own body, restless. Your legs want motion. Your hands itch for tools. Your stomach dreams of green things and fresh kills. You sit up and stretch slowly. A few others are already outside. No rush. You'll need to walk for days soon, so everyone's enjoying their last moments of stillness. You rise and fold your bedroll with more care than usual. Not because it matters, but because rituals feel right on a day like this. The cave is a mess. A beautiful mess. Furs and tools everywhere. Packs half-loaded, bones and baskets. You can tell who's ready to leave by how organised their things are. You can also tell who's pretending to be ready. Varn walks by you with a full pack and an expression that says, "I've been ready for weeks." But you watched him repack it 3 times last night. Miru hasn't even rolled up her sleeping mat yet, and she's been standing in the same spot for 10 minutes, just staring at the wall like it's saying goodbye. And in a way it is. You eat what's left of last night's meal, smoked root mash, dry as chalk but familiar, and sit by the fire one last time. It's smaller than usual, barely more than coals. No one wanting to waste fuel this late in the season, but it's still warm, still steady. You run your fingers over the stone beside it, the same place you once scorched your knuckles moving a too-hot rock. That same groove is still there. Your thumb knows the exact dip. You trace it once, twice, then let your hand fall. The cave isn't alive, not really, but it feels like it is. Or maybe that's just you. Maybe you've lived inside it long enough that its sounds and smells have become part of your own mind, your own rhythm. You'll carry the echo of dripping water and fire pops in your dreams for years. That much is certain. People begin to move in earnest. The chatter picks up. Children chase each other through the exit, shrieking in delight at the open sky. Packs are hoisted onto shoulders. Jokes are made. Arguments start and die quickly. You're part of it, but also slightly apart, watching it all unfold like it's both real and memory at the same time. The shaman is last to pack. Of course. He walks through the cave slowly, his hand dragging along the wall as he goes, touching each space like it holds a specific memory. Maybe it does. Maybe this cave has seen dozens of winters, hundreds of people, generations of warmth and fear and rebirth. He says nothing, just nods once as he passes the hearth and moves toward the entrance. One by one, the group exits. You're near the end. You step out into a sky so blue it feels made of something expensive. The forest stretches ahead, still streaked with snow, but the paths are visible now. Mud instead of ice. Sunlight instead of frost. It smells like water, bark, thawing things. Like the earth just took its first breath in months. You glance back at the cave. It doesn't look like much from here. Just a mouth in the rock, shadow and stone. But you know better. Inside that shadow is where you slept through the worst of it. Inside that cave you shared stories. Warmth, silence, laughter, fear. You survived. And now it's time to carry it forward. You step onto the path and begin walking. The ground is uneven, soft in places, still hard in others. Your boots sink and slip, and your shoulders complain under the weight of your pack. But the air is crisp. The sun hits your face. You close your eyes just for a moment and let it wash over you. Beside you, someone starts humming a travel song. The rhythm catches. Before long, others join in. Voices weaving through the trees, not loud, not polished, but present. Alive. It's not just noise, it's declaration. We are still here. You pass landmarks now softened by melt. Trees you sheltered under once now bare and dripping. A frozen creek breaking loose. Water slicing through ice. You recognize places, but they feel smaller now, less menacing. Winter has retreated, not completely, but enough. That night, you make camp in a shallow grove, pack stacked, fire lit with practiced ease. It's not the cave, not even close. The wind cuts sharper, the ground is lumpier, the stars look more like eyes than dots. But it's also open, wide, possibilities stretching in every direction. You roll into your blankets, heavier now from travel, and close your eyes. Sleep comes harder out here, at least at first, but it still comes. And in your dream, the cave visits you. Not dark, not cold. It glows from within. Warm stone. Whispering walls. You see the faces of those who slept there before you, their outlines traced in firelight. You see the curve of the hearth, the soft shimmer of breath on cave air. It doesn't speak. It doesn't need to. It just remembers you. You wake to birdsong, and you smile. Because somehow, some part of you is still asleep inside that cave, still curled against the fire, still listening for the quiet drip of meltwater in the dark. But the rest of you is here, walking forward, alive. You've made it through the cold, through the cave, through the deep, dark stretch of time that tried to bury you under snow and silence. And now, here you are, lying under a softer sky, warm air brushing your skin, your eyes already beginning to close. You feel it, don't you? That shift, not just outside, but inside you. The tension has started to melt, just like the ice. Your muscles don't cling so tightly. Your breath moves easier. Your mind, finally, lets go of that nightly grip on survival. You can rest now. The cave is behind you, but it's never really gone. You'll carry it with you for the rest of your life. The shape of its walls, the scent of its fires, the way sleep felt heavier in winter but safer somehow. And when the next hard season comes, and it always will, you'll remember this. Not just the fear, not just the hunger, but the warmth, the closeness, the way you found a place to lie down even when the world outside was howling. Tonight you sleep easier, deeper, because you earned it. You survived. So breathe out. Let the tension leave your shoulders. Let the weight slide off your thoughts. You're safe, for now. The cold has passed. The fire is distant, but you can still feel it. The cave may have been stone and shadow, but it held you, protected you, and in your dreams it still does. Now rest, sleep well, wherever you are, and remember, when the world gets cold again, you'll know where to go.